Objection!
Just double checking that the microphone is coming across on the YouTube. Oh, there sounds to be a bit of an echo. Stand by. I think there's a slight echo on the audio there, Al. I'm not sure if that's just me, though.
Possible that Al has the live stream and Discord up.
Oh, dear.
No, it's not. Not on my end.
It wouldn't be a BOJ, it wouldn't be an EOJ if there wasn't a bit of technical difficulties. We'll just try and figure out what's going in here.
What echo are you talking about?
It's coming from the stream in Discord.
What? God damn it, just fucking stream. It always happens! Why does it always happen?
Okay, wait, hang on a second. I'm not hearing it anymore, but that's because I muted the live stream. G, did you mute the live stream on your end?
Nope.
Because now I'm talking, and I don't hear any echo anymore.
I'm hearing it in the YouTube stream itself.
Are you sure it isn't just the fact there's a delay between the Discord audio, like you and I talking right now, and the stream?
Nope, it's very much present in the thing.
Why? Can anyone else hear it? Chat, can you hear the echo?
Gian says they don't.
Okay,
echo. That's on you. That's on you.
So I really think it is. You just have to mute whatever is the director's comment.
This is the joy of being director. I probably have made a problem, and I now realize what is the problem. I had two live directors.
Oh my god!
Hello. Apologies, everyone. That was a certified Mr. G classic moment. How are we all doing? I know that I cannot obviously hear two DCs happening live. That is on me. Welcome to the Bonds of Justice Director's Commentary, finally. My name is Mr. G, certified dual live stream listener and unable to realize when he is the cause of the problems. I am the director of EOJ, don't know for how long after this stunt, and also the director for Bonds of Justice. Today I'm going to be joined by 5 wonderful individuals who will all introduce themselves one at a time. So without further ado, PPW, if you'd like to begin.
Hello, I'm Pretty Pegasus Wings. In the case of this, I was a former PR member, but right now I am the head of HR, and you'll know me for the voice I've done. Coco Pamel, Dantiar, Zakora, and I've also done some animation and such for the project.
Brilliant. Up next, we have MLP Arts.
Hi everybody, my name is MLP Arts. I'm the team leader of the voice actors, and I also voiced Twilight and Rarity. In BOJ, I did Rainbow Dash and Apple Bloom. I'm pretty sure.
You're pretty sure? So you're not 100% sure. You've got a 95% certainty that you've done so.
That's all of them, right? I'm not forgetting anyone?
We'll find out. You'll probably remember when we go through the episode. Ah, yes, that was me. Up next, Brittany.
Hey guys, I'm Brittany, and I'm a member of PR. Pleased to meet you all.
Up next, we have Jarvy.
Hi everyone. I sound really tired. Sorry. I'm Jarvy Jared. I'm the team leader for the musicians and the writers, and I was the former team leader of PR. I'm also one of the writers for PR and BOJ. What else do I do? I feel like that's everything. I do a lot. Hi.
He does.
I have a lot of plans. You can tell that I planned this out.
He knows what he's talking about. And finally, Trenton.
Howdy y'all, my name is Trenton. I am the current team lead for PR. If you know me, you probably know me for doing like the frickin' server advancing for the teasers, but I do also write for Bonds of Justice, and I was the lead writer for episode 2, so I'm like, you may have to force me to shut up about that one.
I'm sure we'll be eager to hear everything that needs to be said on that. So yeah, right. So technical difficulties aside, me not being the problem anymore, we might as well get started with actually watching the first episode. Now, this first episode, for context, is a very interesting one, which I'm sure PPW is going to happily explain, but we'll also all chip in with our own thoughts, because really, this should never have been a Bonds of Justice episode, in truth. It was actually, and always had intended to be, a simple in the team sort of gag joke, a sort of reward, if you will, for completing, I believe it was 2 free, unless I'm mistaken, or someone can correct me on that one.
I have no idea.
That was like 2 years ago. I don't remember.
It was a while ago.
Do you have any recollection?
I wish I could tell you. All I remember is the reason I created it was because Al was just like 2 days before it was going to be released, like, this is when we're releasing it, guys. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like the night before the day before the thing. I don't have time to make something nice. And then it hit me what I could do and how I could get back at Al.
Swung a bat at a hornet's nest and didn't think of the consequences. And
Consequences of our actions, and we certainly suffered some consequences, as I'm sure you all remember. So,
oh gosh,
without further ado, let's get started listening to this wonderful episode.
Yes. It was not surprising that I was to make an audio drama, since I do a lot of those in my, I guess you could say, my spare time. It's a passion.
And the interesting thing about this, obviously, is that the whole thing from start to finish is just your voice, isn't it? The answer machine and Coco's voice are all yours, correct?
Yep. I mean, it would be a spoiler if I went around asking for help. So, and also, I don't think I had time to be like, hey, can you record this in 24 hours?
It's quite remarkable. Because, as we all mentioned, we didn't expect to see this, but it's impressive, just even from the beginning, just, you know, as I say, that you were able to go through this whole thing by yourself and effectively do what I like to refer to as the free churro, as in the BoJack thing of just basically talking by yourself, and it being really, really, really engaging and really hot, you know, really emotionally provoking as well all along the way. And the art as well, was that done by yourself or?
Yeah, that was by me. I did that after the fact, since I didn't have time to do art. I just had audio.
Wow. One pony show.
the audio was the best part. I mean, I remember when you dropped it on us, and I do mean, seriously, Chet, she dropped it on us at the end of one of those episodes of Case 2. I can't even remember which. And it was really funny because you basically had said, I might be misremembering because it has been 2 years. Forgive me, my memory's long and old, but you said, I have something fun that I want to show you guys. So we were all on a call and we were like, okay, this will be like the cakewalk from last year, right? When we completed case 1, right? Right? And then I heard the click of the machine, the dial tone, messages, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is going to be about. I am dead. I am going to be very upset, aren't I? And then I was, because Pretty decided to play with my heart, and I was like, oh, I should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
I think you set the precedent for making BOJ heartbreaking then, huh?
I suppose so.
We have you to blame for all the heartache.
Oh,
unintentionally.
Yeah. You intended something to this. I mean,
when I first heard about this episode, my role on the team was a fan. So I came into this just really, really freaking inspired by the stories that are able to exist in this universe, and now freaking 2 years later, we're still building upon the foundations that were set here.
And it is a testament. I've got to agree with Trenton there that, something that was never intended to be a BOJ helped us shape the foundation of what we wanted it to be. And to this day, we still look back in this with, a sense of, what's the term I'm probably looking for here? Like respect and admiration. Well, yeah, both of those. Respect and admiration for just the effort and the love and the sort of general passion, especially back then, because the idea of creating a side series, as we'll probably get into more along the lines, was never really on the cards. It was an idea that had been kind of loosely formed in people's minds, but we had a main series to worry about, so actually trying to think of, well, what could we do on the side series required a lot of mental energy that a lot of people didn't have the time for. And we're already halfway through the messages and we haven't really commented on any of them, but these really, I feel like giving it a second just to get onto the topic of the actual content itself. The first several of these messages, the positive, the build up of like their relationship is so sweet. And I love how you've given, I think what needs to be really highlighted.
A little scream.
Yeah, the just general enjoyment, the love and affection, just this building like emotional attachment. Oh, all of these are really, really engaging to start with.
Coco and overall concept are adorable.
Any good writer knows to create some emotional investment in the characters before taking them away.
Exactly.
I'll take
To do something like really interesting here, where you don't build connection in like a freaking traditional way of just coming for the heartstrings right off the bat. You build it up in simple ways with like simple conversations that wouldn't mean anything if you like heard them on the street, but knowing the context makes it heartbreaking without being like overt about it.
And then we get this wonderful lines of love you and live with me. We're on to message 9 now,
which was brutal.
Still hits hard.
The editing, of course, was intentional, so I didn't spoil what was going to happen. Though in some ways, it's already kind of a spoiler after the will you live with me? Because we all know that's kind of where it ended, their relationship, where it became more than just boyfriend-girlfriend. They were living with each other. They had a life together. In a way, it kind of spoils itself, but you don't think about it because you get so lost in the messages to each other. And
You're right.
Message number 9, I, of course, had to puncture with an extra space before she speaks, kind of like hesitating to even talk, hesitating to even try, because there's no point. And it also builds a bit of tension, like, wait a minute, she hasn't started talking yet. What's going on?
Listening to all of these again, it's wonderful because... And a sad pony is never a wonderful thing, don't get me wrong. But the wonderful way in which, as you say, you bring out the realization that the consequences of what happens, it spills over to other ponies, other people. And that's something that, like, BOJ has really wanted to try and focus in on a lot more, is you can have the main series case, we have the logic, we have the chase, we have all that wonderful stuff, and, that's great. But in reality... people suffer, ponies suffer, and this is a fantastic example of just starting to explore into what it means to just a single pony. Someone we wouldn't even think of Coco, because the whole thing's been solved and it's all over. So why do we care? This gives us reason to care. This gives us a reason to go back and think, wow, actually, no matter what type of answer we get, there's never an answer for some people. And, this is a perfect... I don't know what else to say. It's wonderful. And again, for the fact that it was all inspiration, just adds a whole form of charm to it that I think we can all appreciate. There's controlled, well-planned emotional stakes, and then there's just being able to bring out that raw sense of sadness and put it onto a screen and do what you've done here. And I do commend you for it again.
Thank you.
I know that ELJ. Sorry.
That's like
EOJ is like freaking more inspired by My Little Pony than it is by like Ace Attorney in like a lot of regards. But like freaking in Ace Attorney, one of the things that I don't think they do terribly well is like emotional arcs for the characters that are not the protagonist, and even then, or the freaking prosecutor, but. Here, we're taking a character who may have not even been given a second glance in her own episode, in her own case, and expanded upon her in a way that makes her at the center of her own story. And I love that BOJ was able to accomplish that.
But yeah, you'll also notice that in the second half, it's kind of a reflection of the first. We go through similar beats of a change in dynamic and life slowly coming into fruition. Her having success in the theater where she accomplishes something and has to learn to take credit for it. And also getting somewhere in her life, in her job and accomplishments. But it's in a different light. And we show how she's growing out of her reliance on overall. I feel like Coco is one of those characters where she's very insecure and is very reliant on the people around her, especially with Suri, who put into her head how much she needs her. And this kind of thing isn't something you're just going to get over by leaving someone, because she started to lean on overall, and that's kind of how I took it. And with his death, now she has to reconcile with being independent and learning to be someone on her own, needing to apologize, not needing to fall back and have other people take her credit. It's all her, and she can be her and live a life that is about her and love it. She doesn't need to be tied to someone anymore.
And you hear it here. You hear it. She's slowly just giving up, but not like giving up on herself.
She's letting go.
I've been thinking about it for a while, and I need to move forward now.
There you go.
I can't keep calling you. Then go about my day like what happened is behind me. You're gone.
It's impressive. It's again just small little beats. The pauses.
A lot about audio editing and audio dramas is really about the timing, the editing, and the direction and flow. It is impactful because you don't have images. You're relying solely on the performer and whatever else you throw in behind all that or do the audio. And knowing how to do that will determine how well of a product you get. Yeah, I did this whole thing by myself in about a little less than 48 hours. Not even 48, probably more like 36, around 24. I didn't have much time.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I had all these notes and
hang on, sorry. Just to put that in like perspective, other bonds of justices take like months. And to freaking have that done by one person in one day just shows PPW's commitment and her freaking talent.
Thank you. And for such a little thing, there may be a lot to say about this being a character exploration thing, but I will say is that in the end of the day, this is a very simple and direct idea and story. And I think that's what it works. It's very punchy in that way. It may not be like the most lasting thing with all the one-liners that you'll always remember, but it's the simple punch it gives and the simple direction that I think gives it the weight that is perfect for what it is.
Simplicity is the avenue towards complexity.
And
this is what I think.
Quite, and as you say, that simplicity led to us deciding that this would be the great way to introduce BOJ as a series, and from this point on, it was really about actually formulating those ideas in a simple but meaningful manner. We're at the end of the episode. Is there anything else you want to comment on, peeps, before we take a few questions whilst we move on to the next episode?
Yeah, I had so many notes here, but yeah, I did this all in Audacity. I use the AM radio / telephone. I think I use them either interchange. I can't exactly remember which, but it was between those two that I went between to get that feeling of a messaging machine. And I know there's a reason I specifically did the messaging machine. I have all these notes. It's hardly organized. Yeah, not only do messaging machines often end, that way, there's nothing else. Like that last batch is there's no new messages, and this is part of the reason for doing it as messaging machine. But it's the first is that the best way to justify this premise with Coco's life and the grieving process is letters just don't fit that. In the world of MLP, it probably would just be letters because they don't really have phones. They don't have very developed technology. But there really is no way in audio to convey that kind of thing. Right. Not cleanly, and it wouldn't exactly have the same feeling as messages would. A messaging machine. The messaging machine, straightforward, emotionless cut-ins and announcements, making it to feel far more finite and tangible. Like you're standing there listening to the history of a pseudo-widow mare. I say pseudo, since they weren't married, but they may as well have been. But no new messages is the most poignant line because it's stating with absolute certainty that she's moved on and is living her best. And really, this whole thing is about the grieving process and growing beyond who you were, that even in the wake of tragedy, that we can find ourselves and even grow as people. Because she eventually figures it out. She moves on. She's finding friends that aren't just like people she works with. They're actually out having fun. She's finding new activities. She's really defining who she is post overall, and I think she's a stronger person for it. Even though she would have been strong with overall, I feel like in some ways push an independence and pushing her outside her comforts and pushing her to address who she is and what her life is without the person she loves helps her define who she truly is now in a way that she couldn't have before. But yeah, everything after effect, of course, when they told me, oh, we're releasing this as its own, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Let me fix it up a little bit. So I think I might have maybe re-recorded a line or two. I thought I was rushing too much to get to the deadline, cleaned up some stuff, made it sound better, look better, put the art in, edited to look exactly as it was. And then I remember we were discussing when we were going to release it, and both dates were tantalizing. One of the dates was, I believe, Christmas Eve, and I was just like, what a way to say Merry Christmas!
Something, turnabout goodbyes joke, something.
Almost
Even more-
Christmas means it isn't Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas! I would have put Jingle Bells if that was the case, but we ended up putting it on the anniversary of Case 1. Couldn't imagine anything more fitting than starting the case with tragedy and ending it on a bit of a tragedy that has a bit of light at the end.
No, and I think it's a very poignant way to look at it. It really summed up that whole case in its general effects on the individual really, really, really well. But as mentioned, it brought about the start of BOJ, and so we'll move on to episode 2 because I don't imagine there's any major questions people have. But if anyone has a question they'd like to ask, we'll take one question from the chat. So now's your opportunity. But we'll get episode 2 of Bonds of Justice set up now whilst we wait for it.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can just poke me in the fan server or want to hear any extra comments that I may have just left on the cutting room floor since we were getting real into the commentary. Just poke me, I guess, and I'll try my best to respond when I can.
It's quite a good list of information here, and it's quite you really did want to break it down quite significantly. So there's quite a lot more of people have questions. But
I'm a writer after all, and I'm obviously a creative. So whenever there's layers, always like onions.
Onions. Yeah, got there before I did. All right, we'll move to episode 2 because I'm not seeing any questions. So Al, if you can get episode 2 up for us, that would be smashing.
Oh yeah, you'll have plenty of questions for the next few, I assure you.
Okay,
You can
now
smash that feels button for us, real quick.
Anyone else getting memories?
here we go. Let's start with episode 2. And first of all, the joys of
Hearing Julius snore? Yeah.
yeah.
There's the frickin' recipe for turnabout reference I don't think anybody ever got, but
It was weird.
What's that background? Ah, she broke into my house.
there was like frickin' I remember there being some like debate over this freaking background on whether the lights should be on or not, but just the idea of flicking it on after just seeing the silhouette on top of him is the funniest image in the whole wide world.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. So this is obviously the first time we organized a BOJ, and the initial premise behind this was actually supposed to be the test, which we'll go into at the end of it, I think, for all the team who joined as PR. But we ended up wanting to turn this into a full episode because a lot of great ideas come from that initial test. And we also wanted to show that, you know, it wasn't just an audio drama medium we could do proper side episodes, which we got. And this is quite interesting. Some people misunderstand as well whether or not, because at this time, unfortunately, we lost our original VA for Rainbow Dash at this time, and Art stepped in for this episode, which was really impressive. And again, we need to highlight that Arts will literally voice half the cast if I probably asked her to. She would hate me for doing so, but she could. But yeah, this was one of those few, some people still think that the previous VA had this. This was actually Arts at this point, doing Rainbow Dash's performance. And again, wonderful job doing so. I must comment, Arts.
One of the like interesting things about like the time we were writing this, and I think at the time we were writing the next few as well, freaking the PR team was not an actual like official part of the ELJ production. We were kind of like locked in our own little room on the fan server, and our only points of contact were G, who at that point not the director, and Jarvy. I didn't even like really meet Al or freaking PPW or Arts until or Julius
Afterwards.
until after
were using this as the
give her some
as a kind of an initiation trial of sorts.
Yeah. We were still in initiation mode at the time this was being written. We went past the initiation, but
You're here, so yeah.
A bit awkward if we
failed
came
twice.
out. Yeah.
No, you passed it.
not like you.
You always
So-
were going
I
to.
don't care
So.
what time it is. If there's
The
something I can
dynamics between Rainbow and Phoenix were crucial here as well, if we turn to the episode briefly, because we knew that there was going to be tension. There was always going to be a little bit of tension with how Rainbow is constantly wanting to defend those around her, and we see that throughout Case 2. And the interesting thing, though, is here, obviously, Rainbow and Phoenix had history, good history. Phoenix has helped Rainbow a lot, obviously, Turnabout Storm. So balancing that level of, well, do you trust me? Do you acting like you don't trust me, but I know you can do it, it was pretty difficult. And it was one of the big deciding factors about who was capable in our eyes, who could manage the conflict without turning it into drama. It is drama, but you don't need drama to basically be dramatic. It can be natural. It can be human, even though that's ironic when we're talking about colourful pastel ponies, but that's besides the point.
What can I do for you?
You can answer my question for one thing.
I will say,
I'm mad about
him being a father probably prepared him for this.
riled up.
and
I think
Rainbow going through her like angsty phase, but
really sad.
I mean-
to say it out loud, but
freaking like concept
This is-
something that just really resonated with me. Of like freaking Phoenix knows this world better than she does, which is actually kind of a little sad.
I feel like I
But
should be more upset, angry than I am.
This is PMD
I was
music,
just-
isn't it?
Voted by fate
Yes,
that
this
justice
is-
prevailed.
Oh, you're testing my knowledge here, but I know that we use this at the
In the
end
credits.
of for BOJ4 as well, don't we?
Yeah.
Any good so
And
far?
maybe that's a brief thing to also touch on is music in the series is a very interesting, like, inspiration in terms of what we chose for this, Jarvy and I especially. We'll probably get to a specific track in a minute as well, which everyone will know.
Anger, though, I mean,
Nightmares? Maybe
I don't love this little moment between Rainbow and Phoenix, where Rainbow, you know,
Well, I'm
her anger gives way to her actual feeling. Not to go psychoanalytical, but there is this idea that anger is a surface level sort of emotion. There's something underneath it, which is usually what's really what you're feeling. And I think that's what Rainbow feels. You know, she puts on an angry front, but it's only because she's scared, genuinely terrified for Scootaloo.
Like, one of the things that I wanted to explore without freaking really diving too deep into making it overt is the idea that Rainbow is projecting what she went through onto Scootaloo and being like, freaking nobody deserves that, and that's at the core of her emotional outburst here.
Once your nerves calm, you'll still
It's hard
Big
not
sister
to.
energy.
Sister energy.
It's really hard not to because she really wants what's best for Scootaloo. And, well, imagine what it was like for her. Imagine what it's like for a child. And, I can only imagine being accused for murder at Scootaloo's age. Her parents are, countries away. And really all she has is probably Rainbow Dash and the few other family characters that are around.
That's another thing. Rainbow Dash was always struck me as more freaking independent than all the other main six were. And so, even with that, when she thought Fluttershy had completely turned against her, that notion of the entire world is against me, I have nobody to turn to, Rainbow does not want Scootaloo to feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
That line, I remember it.
That makes the ending to Case 2 hurt even more. I didn't even make that connection until you pointed it out.
Oh my god.
Now the sting stings more.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, Scootaloo did go through what she did, except it was actual betrayal. But not really.
It's enough.
Yes, but no. Yes, but actually no.
And unlike with Rainbow, she didn't get a chance to sort of
work it
what's
out.
The term? Work it out, yeah. I mean, because at the end of Hermit Storm, Rainbow and Fluttershy, they make up. At the end of Case 2, nope.
Well, how do you come back from that?
Sorry, Sweetie Belle. Sorry, Apple Blue.
For Rainbow Dash, the betrayal was Fluttershy doing her civic duty, something she could never avoid without fear of persecution by the law. But Sweetie Belle had a choice. She always had a choice.
I can't fully trust Athena with this.
And she made him.
I know that makes me sound lousy.
No pony wants to be friends with the blackmailer.
Oh, you have to make that comment.
I have to. It's been a year since I've made it. I promised MV I wouldn't, and I'm breaking that promise today.
Quick thank you to Rambling Guy 89 from the chat as well. Thank you for the $20 donation. Let's see, no commentaries delve into the. Well, this is the thing, and one of the things about BOJ that you will hopefully all come to see, and this episode was the first time we formalized the process, but later episodes had more of a plan, ultimately culminating in BOJ 5, which arguably, without a doubt, is the strongest one in my opinion thus far, because of the fact we had a clear idea of what we wanted to do with it. I'm not saying we didn't with the previous, not especially with this. This had an intention. This was to show the dynamics between characters could exist, but BOJ 5 had...
BOJ 5 was iterative.
Worth mentioning BOJ 2, 3,
we'll get there.
It's worth mentioning that BOJ 2, 3, and 4 were written by the PR team when they were still kind of in that, not just fans, but not exactly members of the team little gray area. So we had not read the scripts. We did not know where the case was going. We did not know what direction the series was going in, either story-wise or emotion-wise. So you were kind of just working off what already existed here with a little bit of guidance from the others.
Oh, you too. And that is a very good point, is that even back then, even though I was directing this, my knowledge of the series was quite limited still. I was only head of PR at the time, so I didn't have as much information as I wanted. And I had to liaise a lot with Jarvy here and other writers to make sure that we, kept within the original plans. But as you say, what came from the lack of information was really impressive. Again, because, with very little, we've got a 20-minute episode here, just fully divulging into Rainbow Dash and Phoenix's mentality about a case that is testing both of their resolves. One of them is looking at their student becoming a full, a stronger attorney. The other was seeing their little sister basically be put up for murder. really good.
This was
really good
originally
stuff.
about like 10 pages longer. You like hit me with a stick until I cut it down.
Oh, here's the music.
Here's the talk. And again,
I love Fugitives, dude.
it's a good song.
It's Runaway Fugitives is just so inspiring and so sad. This is from actually not the original. I think this is from Super Mystery Dungeon.
I think it is. At least, yeah, I think because it was the updated version of the blue and red team. I can't remember which. But
so this is hard.
Music is something that I think BOJ has a lot more flexibility with than the main series does, and we've done our best to take advantage of that because we do want to keep the tracks in the main series a lot more consistent to a traditional Ace Attorney case. But here, this isn't about Ace Attorney, this isn't about NLT, this is about characters, this is about engagement. And Jarvy is, being our musician lead, really has helped to develop that understanding of tracks can be a lot more than just, right track, right moment. There's the ability to really meld what's happening on screen with the music to just amplify these small things. You take the words away, it's impactful. You take the music away, this is still impactful, but you add the music and you're suddenly hit with a cannonball. And we've got that later as well in BOJ5, I think, again. We keep talking about BOJ5. I feel like
you were still on BOJ2.
I know, but this is the thing: is these episodes they all matter to me in their own way. They all taught us something. And BOJ5 was my way of showing everyone, and everyone here actually as well, showing what we've learned from these lessons. Personally,
but even so, everything will turn out all right.
I was so excited to see that I would get to play a vulnerable, version of Dash, because she does come off as, with that tomboy toughness 90% of the time. So it's nice to remember that she's a pony just like everybody else, and she has feelings. She just doesn't always share them because she doesn't want to be seen as weak.
Exactly.
And especially
things are going to come out of this trial. Not gonna lie.
Not even knowing it. I stuck in. I was like, they're not going to know us until we get to the end of case 2.
Yo, I wrote that having only episodes 2 through 5 in my mind because I did not know what was going to freaking happen in the second trial.
Yep.
So I can only imagine Jarvy's freaking face when he saw that in the script.
I was like, oh, don't say anything.
But yeah, Rainbow Dash, I feel like out of everyone in the main 6 feels she has to be the strongest for Scootaloo because she is the big sister. She needs to be the rock. She needs to be the sign of hey, I'm fine. I went through this. I was tough. You can be tough. And that kind of inspiration.
Right. Something in Kanto song, something.
Now, speaking of song, this I think was the first custom track for BOJ, if I'm not mistaken.
First custom track for BOJ. First custom track that I composed with the idea that this is going to be a game-like song. This is going to be more to a score in a way, without being actually a scored piece. I mean, I did the same thing with Beyond the Crusade, but this is more of the continuation of my experience with that. I call it Blue because Rainbow's blue. I was really smart with the name, guy. Oh wait, it was called Blue. The episode was called Rainbow Blues. I was like, there's nothing. It's perfect. It's cute. But I designed this song to be very reminiscent of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon music. And it kind of hits.
It does. But it's got.
And you'll notice that it's very much. There isn't a lot of repetition, which makes it not very game-like. A game song will repeat, certain motifs and everything, but this is just a straight, custom composition with 4 movements, and there's no repeated chorus. Just one straightforward moment.
And it all leads up very nicely. And I'll come back to this light switch in a second, but it leads up to this wonderful, adorable little still designed by Alicia Doodles.
Gee, I just realized the Goodnight Phoenix, it parallels Goodbye Turning. Good night. Oh,
we knew. We knew.
I didn't even realize.
We knew.
Why does it seem like I was possessed by the spirit of Jarvy? I did not know any of that.
Future Jarvy as well.
Oh, I hurt myself.
Have Phoenix say goodnight, Trenton. Have Rainbow Dash say goodnight.
I didn't realize.
Guys, I swear.
So much good framing. I didn't even realize it. Oh.
And I feel like we may just roll back after we finish with the special effects and everything, just to a few things. But yeah, so that was episode 2. So generally speaking, what we wanted to achieve with this episode was we wanted to show, first of all, the capabilities of the PR team. That was the genuine intent. But then secondly, we also wanted to try and explore the most obvious dynamic that we could think of at the time, which was Phoenix and Rainbow Dash's general emotions towards things, trying to explore what it means to both of them, develop them a bit, since they haven't been given as much of a, not as much of as a say as we'd probably be expecting, though arguably Rainbow would always find a way to make a comment about something. I briefly mentioned the light switch. We've been trying our hardest I've been trying my hardest, so to say, but everyone else in the BOJ team, what we've been doing is to try and give each episode something different to show a concept that could work. And in this particular episode, there was 2. The first was that light switch, so just having 2 versions of the background, so that it looked, like it was actually changing. That was the first thing we wanted to trial out and see how that would operate. And then the second is what I'd like to sort of call the memory moment of the episode, and that is the moment where a really impactful still or image comes up, and that's what we got with the Rainbow Dash. That was purely planned, purely just to try and give the artist who was working on this, in this case Alicia Doodles, a bit more promotion. So all of these little things, they all had a purpose, a bit of research and development, if you will, and that's kind of how BOJ has been for me in season 1. There's a little bit of trial and testing, and we get this actually in the next episode, but as well. But we'll go briefly now to any questions, or if anyone has any other points they want to sort of make about the episode before we move on. But we'll take a question as well from the chat as well, if people have any.
Brittany, you may be able to speak about this too, but they brought it up earlier as a passing comment, but this developed from our audition for the PR team. If you want to talk about that a bit.
It brought back a lot of memories. I actually wasn't confident I was going to get in, but Mr. G surprised me, and here we are now. What about you, Trenton?
Well, freaking wrote it at school, and it was 30 pages, and it ended up being 15. But and then I sent it in, and G told me that it sucked, and then he was like, "Oh, just kidding, you're now part of the PR team." So that was my first introduction to this man. Yeah, this was me and Brittany both wrote a version of this script as our auditions, and mine ended up taking precedent, but a lot of ideas from the other PR team auditions ended up inside it. All right, we've got a few questions from the chat.
Yeah, scene. So from Fluffy, this is probably directed, I think, a bit more towards you, PPW, but would you want to do a BOJ episode 1 again in the future? So similar audio drama, I assume.
Well, I guess firstly, I am always working on, well, maybe not always, but I once did. I'm taking a bit of a break for my well-being. I want to work on myself in parts of ways, because I realized, after the disaster of the last couple of years, and especially beginning this year, I was not doing great. So in a way, yes, I do a lot of audio drama work already on Empire Productions, if you ever want to check that out. But also the series are going to evolve way beyond where they are now, so what you're seeing there is only just a prototype of what will become. But secondly, for EOJ, honestly, as much as I love doing the first one, and I would totally do more of these, and if I get the chance to do more of these and maybe poke other people being like, hey, you want to do a collab real fast, I would do those as a fun little side thing. But really, I'd love to just really lead BOJ to the PR team. It really made it their own thing. They've done so many amazing things with it, and gosh, I don't really want to bother them. They're doing great stuff. Why should I fix what's not broken? But at most, probably, if they'd be up for it, I would collab with them at some point. Maybe make something silly together.
Love to have you back.
Expect a DM from me after this call.
Oh,
You've volunteered yourself for something now, PPW. Be careful what you wish for.
Get ready, guys.
If you ever want a collab and I have the moment, I'd be up for it. You guys do such awesome work. I'd be honored to join in on whatever scheming you're doing.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you. Scheming is the right word for the record, so...
Isn't it always?
Right. Well, let's move on to episode 3 then, since we've all managed to we've covered that introduction, as I say, to episode 2. Wonderful, way to show what the PR team was capable. This next episode, though, well, this one was a bit of an interesting one, I'd say.
If you want to talk about experiments, I think this is our first purely third-person episode. So
Yes. No, good call there, actually, Trenton. I didn't clock that initially, even though I was there making the damn thing.
Mysteries of the universe. Why are we here?
I love this red versus blue reference. It's so funny.
I don't think this was in the original script. I think Jarvy insisted to be there.
It wasn't me, because I actually have never watched Red vs. Blue. I just know the meme, but somebody made it, and I was like, go for it. Make it fun.
A little
I wonder who it
show
was.
for a bored
It's a good comedy.
being
It's
to
good.
entertain themselves and reference
It's
out
good
there
comedy.
every single day.
Also, this little Pokemon Mystery Dungeon sound effects.
Yeah.
So good. So cute.
I freaking love Cinnamon Swirl's expressions.
I just love the guards.
It was quite good, actually, because this is one of those moments I talk about R&D again. Those Pokemon Mystery Dungeon sound effects were, an editor's choice, I believe, by Connor, who edited this one, to, give a little bit more flair to it. And I like it, and we may do it more again. Because, I always take more Pokemon Mystery Dungeon inspiration. I love the series. My favorite sort of like RPG type series. Even though it's not really a full RPG, but potatoes.
Isn't it closer to like a dungeon crawler at times?
Roguelike, I think, is the term, if I'm not
Roguelike
mistaken.
dungeon crawler. Or mystery Pokemon dungeon, I mean.
Am I making this up, or was like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon not like the first game to introduce that format? Was it like something else? What am I thinking of?
I know what you're referring to, and that's why I say is it's referred to as a type of thing from a particular game. But these two characters, right, Stone Spade and Cinnamon Swirl, it's interesting. We wanted to give the guards a bit more of a bit more personality because they got kind of hard done by in the first couple of episodes, and that's what kind of brought this episode to life. Was, hey, there's guards. Let's see what we can do with them.
We had a waifu and a Chad. Worked really well.
Are you kidding?
A waifu, a Chad, and the true killer of Royal.
And the true killer.
The mastermind. We know not his name.
No, not his name. Actually, if I could talk about the names for a second, I suggested we pause during this. I'm going to decline that chance now.
Okay, let's take a pause here then.
Okay. You know what? Let's just pause anyway because I want to bring like a cute little picture on screen. But the names Cinnamon Swirl as a concept had existed in the community for a while. I honestly do not remember where it came from or where it originated, or that it was just never told. But then frickin' Erlen Spade was a PPW type thing. I don't know what on earth this woman puts in her coffee, but we asked her for name suggestions, and we got like freaking 35 of them. And
I remember that.
yeah, and so what happened was we had to pick a list of 35. Which one would be the appropriate for Sterling Spade? That was the one that eventually won, of course. We discussed giving Guard 2 an official name, and it came down to Olive Green, who is a freaking amazing member of this PR team, was the first drafter, the leader-outer for this episode, and they were the one who just popped Ashtray into existence, and there was not even any more discussion of another name. That was just what we all decided to go with, and we didn't make it his real name. We made it a nickname and just decided it's going to be like a freaking Penny from the Big Bang Theory situation where it's just no answer we could give would be satisfying, so we decided not to bother. Anyway, right. I love Olive, I love PPW, I love the PR team, and some of the simplest names is actually a bigger discussion than you might think behind the scenes.
Names are tricky because, they're gonna be what defines a character from then on. Like, we know characters by their names, and in MLP it's especially fun because they're usually the words we already know, which names are technically like that, but they're not like that, not like MLP is. So it makes it more interesting, like what combination of names not only sounds good, like say Sterling Spade or Cinnamon Swirl, but also matches the character. And that's really what's fun about naming pony characters, is because you get to have a lot more fun with how you do the names.
And I will say, for anyone who is wondering, and I think it's fair to put this out there, as Trenton mentioned, the name Ashtray was kind of just thrown in there. Does Guard 2 actually have a real name? Currently, no. And that's maybe a bit of a thing for people to be upset about.
And he never will, because God, it's so much better when he doesn't have one.
Yeah, it's exactly.
His real name at the end of Case 5 when it's revealed that he's been the mastermind behind the entire series. Oh wait, sorry.
No, it's in the secret DLC 6th case is where we'll see the true backstory of Guard number 2.
His real name, everyone, is Heroic Himbo, because he's gonna come in clutch at the end and save the day. Let's be honest. Anyway.
I was imagining more like freaking like Bobby Fulbright or.
Well,
his name is just Bobby. His name's a pony named Bobby.
It's Bob. He's just a generic Bob.
Just Bob.
We never really finalized the name for Guard 2, and
because I was very. I mean, when we were writing this episode, I think Trent and Brandon, you might remember this. My thing was, don't give him a name. Don't give him a name. Let's just play around with it, like, you know, talking around the bush, as it were. And it worked out really well. I mean, people like Ashtray. It's cute. It's funny. But also, I was like, one of my few mandates in, you know, when I was leading the PR team was, don't give the Guard 2 a name. It's not worth it. These two deserve a name, but he doesn't deserve a name.
Yeah. You know, sometimes the side stuff doesn't matter as much as the main stuff, and I think in this instance we learned that lesson of, you know, sometimes if we're not careful, too many things will be inferred from very little, which, you know, we thought would not benefit everybody. But I will say that if I could go back and give him a name now, I probably would. The question I will take up time thinking about what name I would give him. But I would probably base it off. Well, no, I would base it off of his wonderful VA, obviously Destro, because I feel like, you know, that we'd be able to find something for that. But Destro did put in quite a marvelous performance in making people hate a character. Just a single random character. They're going to give props to Destro on that one.
He had maybe a dozen lines total. So funny.
And also to Viola and Jarvy here as well, because both of them were not. Oh, I think Viola does a bit of V work, but it's not their main role on the team. And this is something else that was really important for me, is giving people the opportunity to shine and have a chance to do something that they wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do. So so another fun fact about like all these characters is, you know, they weren't ever meant to have massive amount of space, but this is where BOJ came in to give them the space too, and give some of our team a good opportunity to spread their proverbial wings and fly off into new lands of experience, shall we say?
New age.
Right, well, we've covered the name, we've covered the ponies, so let's get back to hearing what they have to say about Case 2.
Yeah.
I was trying to wrap my head around this nut job of a case and why any pony could do such a thing. But every time I try to make sense of it, I get more questions than answers, and I hate it.
I forget who designed Cinnamon Swirl's full design. Was it Viola or was it Saturn? Who's one trying to get
Good question. I will have to look at the credits again. I've forgotten, but
I know that the upcoming still that was Saturn, which made everyone fall in love with Cinnamon Swirl.
I'm just as confused as you are.
I mean, who wouldn't fall in love with the Cinnamon Swirl?
Especially after the
Was it Viola?
incidents.
I have a feeling.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Viola if I remember right, but I can be wrong.
Manhattan who killed himself.
I
in
was.
front of the bodies.
Sorry, I just have this dream on my end also. Al, you spoke, your
And
big
the
eye
fact that one of
just
them
appeared in the
was the
middle.
clone of the other, who
That was a
one of
quick
our
Al
members of the
cameo.
Royal Guard.
That's so
Oh,
funny.
right. I mean, we're thankful to have the prince
Kinda
and
did that in the
humans
background.
and the authorities to protect us.
Here's something y'all may or
The
may not want to talk
possibility of Tony could be
about.
doing such a
Hang on.
thing is
Here's something y'all may or may not want to talk about. Remember when we tried to premiere this episode?
Oh, no.
That was a mess, wasn't it?
Oh, hey, everything that goes wrong with the OJ and BOJ. It's all part of the identity of the product.
it's
That
funny.
was a
Back when I
that
was
was,
a
I
whole,
think,
I used to
off the
read
top of
a
my
lot of
memory,
super
that was
comics.
a slight
They were always
rendering
about these
issue
strong,
with
courageous
how the files were being rendered at the
take
time,
on
because
anything.
we did
In one
fix
issue,
it eventually.
they're fighting
But yeah, the
someone
initial
super
release of this ended up, I'm not entirely sure how to describe it, but it definitely seemed to phase into a different existence or a different plane of existence when we initially tried.
The one, I think it's the one time we've legitimately had to cancel a premiere.
Well, we got it started again in like an hour, but you're right, it was the first time we've had a quote-unquote failed premiere. Right, this image.
The image that started it all.
Never losing a battle. That's
He's concerned.
I'm trying to remember.
But
I think
I
it
never
was.
It was Saturn.
It was Saturn. And again, that was the memory moment for this episode, harking back to what I said in episode 2. And I'm very glad. I had hesitations, I won't lie, because the chin is definitely eye catching, shall we go? But I'm glad we
He's
went
got the
with it.
Chad shit. It's so funny.
Sure thing.
Anyone else think that Sterling in that image kind of looked like a dope? Because it kind of looks like one to me.
Do you think she's gonna be okay in there?
I mean, he is a
I
dope.
don't know, Speed.
No.
He's a bit of a dope. He's a good-natured dope.
Even more
Hang on.
so
And right
for
there we had the
Though I can
www.tvtropes.com/title drop.
You know, ashtray.
And there's the ashtray.
There it
It's
is.
so fun.
There it is.
Wish I could have
And of
seen the
course-
premiere for when he got name dropped for the first time.
People loved it. They also took it as like, oh, that's really his name, and we were going to be like, well, if you watch the next 30 seconds, it actually isn't.
What? How come?
If word gets out to that guy,
I think some people were confused about what Cinnamon Swirl is going on about here. It's more of a hyperbole. I think that some people were weirdly thinking that Sudden House Ashtray was able to, take over a
Throw
question.
weight around. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was very much hyperbole.
not to
It's,
mention how he
it's
insulted
MLP. There's always a little
elements
element of
of
hyperbole.
friendship was there.
That's
was
kind
also-
of the point.
I always
We don't
took it as-
talk about Ashtray.
Then why are you defending him?
No.
I'm not defending anyone.
That face is one of my favorite things that's ever been in the OJ. Freaking Cinnamon Swirl's dumbfounded face.
Was also inexcusable. That much is clear. But with everything that's happened with
We get a couple of audio things in this episode as well, like with just that previous line, which it's it's testament to the audio engineers. They tried their best to fix it, but for some reason, sometimes the software just doesn't always mix the audio the same way. I don't know what happened in this. This episode was badly cursed for production issues. The render and
The Ashtray.
or even appear to.
Because guard
and
two.
obviously the audio, but
That sense
it was
of safety
Gato. It was
that you
Gato.
are sworn to protect, it's gone.
And this is something I want to point more attention to, because again, all characters in the series have value in their own way, and it's these moments that really highlight again, like how no matter what happens in the case, it will spill over into the wider world, and something that we've taken forward, even going into the next case. Hint, there's a minor spoiler, is just keeping an eye on that in aspect, keeping an eye on those impacts. And something that I want to look into season 2 as well is really focusing, like not forgetting where we've been, not what we've done. Because sometimes Ace Attorney cases, especially when they're not tied to a greater narrative, they just forget about, a really high class lawyer died and there's no other effect other than on the main characters. That's not how real world works, and something that we definitely want to portray more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some ways it's important for the MLP aspect of the crossover, because things don't exactly happen in a bubble, even in the show. And good to have that extra slice of life to balance out a lot of the court drama.
It was an emotional scene, okay?
Why is it that, like, friggin' Like, when I think of, like, the freaking Ace Attorney concept of death having real consequences, the first thing that pops into my mind is Turnabout Big Top. It's like, for some reason, they decided to base that entire case's emotional crux on the impact of the ringmaster's death, even though it didn't really end up paying off in a satisfying way.
Yeah.
There's also this reference to the Starving Games and the Hunger Games, and this episode was very reference heavy, I will admit. But that was
Blue, Dr. Wolf, Hunger Games.
I mean, I feel it's fitting for the two guards that otherwise wouldn't have any character or meaning to the story without it.
And it's also an opportunity for us to show off our, small, we all have inspirations and stuff.
I think it was really cool that Dr. Wolf actually went and commented on our video.
I know! Yeah.
I was like, that's my child, man. What the heck?
Dr. Wolf is amazing.
It's so cool when the old guard, that's a bit of a pun, comes and says hello.
But I will say, a mark of a good writer is the ones that take the time to acknowledge and share their influences. Because we're all influenced by something, and nothing's ever truly in a bubble. And I think it's wonderful when you can be a bit more open about that. And BOJ allows for that to really shine.
Oh, I know. G knows that I know. G would not be muted right now. He'd be laughing at me right now.
Oh, I always laugh at you, Jarvy, don't worry. Even when I'm muted.
We're not going to share it with Ash.
No, I love the dynamic. These two, small time
energy.
Maybe the guy will listen to you.
It's good. It's cute, and hopefully, wherever they are after this case, that stays.
It's specifically
I love that little
piece.
If he doesn't take it,
I love the
funny thing about MLP.
Just know that Sterling is glaring at her.
Hey, isn't that one of the human attorneys?
Yeah, it's the red.
Here it comes.
Remember?
Do you think he's planning to go inside the Everfree Forest?
Looks like it. Probably to continue the investigation.
Should we stop him?
You know what to do, Cinnamon.
You don't have to tell me twice.
That was a fun way to end the episode as well. I'm glad.
That just makes me feel all warm inside.
I love the silly little notion that they love doing that as much as the lawyers love shouting objection.
I know, right?
It's a freaking funny, man.
And sort of looking into I had a point here about the dynamics between the two again, and it's just evaded me. When it came to designing the sort of I'm hearing an echo of myself, so it's helping. I'm really helping here. I'm floundering, people. I'll get the point back in a second.
Dude.
I'm not. No, I'm hearing it coming back from Art. It's not the stream. I learned my lesson this time.
Blaming someone else. Wow.
The dynamics, and I think this was also, I remember the point now. This was one of the few times, or one of the first times as well, where I think I managed to get both VAs into a call and record simultaneously. Technique that I picked up a bit more later on. And definitely something that is going to be used going forward, because even though we're all over the world, we can still organize a couple of meetups. But I think it was really, it helped build that banter and dynamic, and Viola and Jarvy both really worked well together when that stuff was there. So this episode, what do we want to achieve with it? Well, we wanted to flesh out the guards. They've been given quite a lot of let's just say fan screen time, I suppose is the best way to refer to it. Everybody was talking about Guard 2 a lot, and Cinnamon Swell, and
I wanted to dunk on that, to be honest. I'll be completely honest. When we went through these ideas for it, and the idea of Guard 2 being a part of this dialogue came up, I wanted him involved only because I was very tired of people saying he's the killer when there's no reason for him to be a killer. I wanted to make a little bit of fun at, oh, he's a jerk, he's totally the killer, as a concept. Yes. It was cute. I liked it.
I think it was smart, and we gave character to all of them. We gave them all a little bit more backstory, and we wanted to really focus in on, not just having characters sort of exist and disappear. And as I say, we wanted to expand. There was one other thing that came from this episode, though, that I don't wasn't used too much, but was definitely used later on. Initially, when it came to designing this episode, I wanted to have a bit more of an active background. Sort of a moving background, if you will. And what I ended up doing, we ended up just making these discussions early on. And from the sort of discussions, the thinking, the planning that came from it, we were able to apply it into one of the actual main series episodes. Believe was the Chorus Hut, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere, maybe not. But we were able to get like a proper plan in place on how we would make sort of semi-moving backgrounds thanks to this episode, and that was another awesome thing that BOJ offers. There's the opportunity to test out new style designs, new ways of presenting things, and you'll see that very clearly in the also coveted BOJ 5. But yeah, this episode ultimately, really simple premise. Give the characters, the guards specifically, a bit more history, a bit more backstory. Bit of a breather, and let them shine.
Make it funny, but also have a heart to it.
Yes, and there was a meme.
Sorely lacking in humor for case 2. This is actually like a funny. They've such a fun dynamic.
But it was the fact that we'd gone, I think, and there was a meme floating around in the team server for a bit, but it was after 16 hours of content, we finally had a funny EOJ episode.
Bonds of Justice.
And it was in Bonds of Justice of all places. Oh, boy. Well, we learned our lesson. No, we didn't. We ended up with 2-9. And
I learned my lesson, G.
You learned your lesson. Well, at least one of us did. We'll take a question for this episode, but does anyone have anything else they want to highlight from this episode? Anything else that they want to say whilst we get questions in?
I might be remembering this wrong, but wasn't there a comment on the video that said that Sterling and Cinnamon made a cute couple or something?
Yeah.
Dear.
Retrospect.
And then BOJ4 came out, and it was just great. There was a comment like that. And I was laughing. I was like, whoops. And then BOJ4 came out and it was like, oh, sorry.
Oh, she's a lesbian.
There's like a pattern in BOJ where the shipping just kind of blows up.
If it's in the BOJ, it's not going to happen. That could be the rule.
Like freaking Apple Bloom dismisses it out of concept, so no ships are allowed to exist.
Yeah.
Well, I've not seen a question, so if no one else has got anything else, we'll go straight into that ship-destroying episode of BOJ4. I will make a preamble to number 4 with a little bit of a sort of like comment. Some people were surprised that we did a back-to-back episode involving the guards. And I kind of want to address that here because I appreciate that it's a bit weird that we focused a lot on those two. But there were other characters that may have, potentially deserved a little bit more of a shine on, say, Sugar Stamp and Fair Devotion. And it was a fair comment. And the reason that we just ended up wanting to go with the guards is we felt that, first of all, they had the best versatility. And one of the things from BOJ3, which people may or may not know, and probably most people don't, we because of all the timings that we had to keep an eye on, we slightly made an error with when the episode is taking place.
Yeah, the time that it takes place.
And we didn't want to factor that into we didn't want to cause another incident with like all of those other characters happening, because they have quite a lot going on as it is in the main series. And as people came to see, like, in 2.8 and 2.9, there was a lot of emotional moments already lined up for Sugar Stamp and Fair Devotion. So, guards were the most reasonable most reasonable medium to to conduct this episode in. But this episode also did suffer from quite a lot of replanning, and we'll probably go into some of those elements and may have a few pauses to explain what our alternative version would have been. But this episode really did get quite hit hard with having to be sent back and forth because of planning issues with the main series writers at the time. So it still came out, even though people may have wondered why we did back-to-back guards and why we focused on Apple Bloom and all this. We had a particular reason we wanted to get that episode out, and that reason will become apparent when we get into the episode, and ultimately we achieved what we wanted with it. So without further ado, we'll get into the episode itself and explore some of those a bit more. But I thought I'd preamble it with a little bit of a explanation as to why we had that chaos, that madness, if you will.
Yep. And I actually already have something to say right off the bat. It's about the frickin' title. Not far from the tree. I mean, you might recognize that as part of like the proverb, but the proverb is about, like family and about traits being passed down from one generation to the next, which is something that's very important to, Apple Bloom as a character, given her parents are not present. She's had to be raised by somebody who, in the grand scheme of things, is still quite young and inexperienced when it comes to, life and all of its different facets. And then there's also another pony in this episode who may have some like family stuff going on, but there's also the matter of just like freaking trees is funny for a couple of reasons. They're going to the Evergreen Forest, and there's also the tree in Sweet Apple Acres, which represents Apple Bloom's fallen parents. So, title I felt was just like a way to, introduce both the themes and the actual content of the episode while being sneaky about it. I think it worked out well. How about y'all?
Titles are definitely important. I know that when we were in initial stages, I was at a loss for a title, but when you said it, I was like, that hits. Let's do that.
It really does. Because you think like everyone thinks of the same thing right away. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's always referring to parents. And Apple family doesn't have parents, so.
Oh yeah, I forgot that the word apple was also in that proverb, which kind of, something was funny.
It's kind of obvious, yeah.
On you, didn't he?
A little bit of
Just another
hinting
note,
towards.
Just another note.
House, wonderful still. This is
Most
very
of my
cute.
freaking contribution to this episode was like me going in and fiddling with the accents to make sure they sounded
Yeah.
right.
Needed your help, definitely, because I was like, I know that Apple will go hard on this accent, but I am not a Southern person, so I need someone with... I need a native, basically, so to get us to help with the accent. And you did a really good job with some of this. There's a point coming up where I think you said cobwebbing the stables, and I was like, I love that. I don't know what that is, but I love that turn of
I live in
phrase.
the stables. But I don't think I wrote that originally, but like I southernized it, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seems
was
cute. I
the-
loved it. I was like, this is great. I'm gonna adopt
I was
that.
the one with the cobweb stables.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was good. Like I love that. It was just I don't know how to describe like why it's so appealing, but it's like it's so quirky, but like in a good way.
That's it.
I did a quick Google search, and apparently cobwebbing the stables is a real thing.
Get Sweetie Belle declared innocent.
It is.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Interesting.
I
I
wouldn't
guess
be
it makes sense 'cause,
surprised.
like you would dust the stables or cobweb.
Well, I mean, if you're nice to your horses, obviously, which you should
Yeah.
always be.
Yeah, otherwise they'll kick you.
This is so true. Poor Apple at this moment, just trying to be motivated and it's just not there.
My favorite CMC.
No friends.
my favorite.
And
Stick around.
voiced by the wonderful Arts, obviously.
If I sneak out on my chores.
And then
And here's Cadet, who's a gift to this world.
Mm-hmm.
There. It's a shame those trees can't just harvest themselves. Hey,
I'd like to give Applejack a bit more screen time, especially in this case as well.
The floor's pretty much all swept.
yeah, she's not a background character.
Are you sure?
Sounds great.
There's the main five, isn't there, and then the background pony.
Oh,
No, that's Spike.
Let me go get my pick.
Come on, G, you gotta be faster in the draw than that. You knew I was gonna say something to that effect.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I was listening to you.
Freaking
You've known me for 2.5 years. Come on. Come on. Come on.
freaking concept of allowing sound to carry this like a little scene there where we just hold on Applejack while she runs upstairs is probably, this episode's contribution to, the great BOJ mission experimentation.
Yes.
Let me see that.
I agree.
Oh yeah, I noticed that you had like sound effects in this episode, like aside from the usual swipe and all that.
Well, I guess they decided I was old enough to take this on.
she sounds kind of convincing. It's kind of concerning.
Covering clothes and cleaning gear.
Oh,
Oh, you want to speak about convincing? I feel like we should also highlight that your Rainbow Dash caught Michelle off guard when we were doing the Kraber critiques, which was quite hilarious. Which says a lot about, as you say, your voice matching capabilities. The fact that you actually had one of the official show VAs take a minute to actually try and process what
Ashley? Wait a
If it
second.
makes you feel better, I'll go cobweb the stable so you don't have to worry about it.
I mean, I love your apple bloom. It's so cute.
Oh, thanks. I hope I don't outgrow it. My voice doesn't like change, and then I can no longer do her high voice.
Oh, we could always, play as apple blooms growing up.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I don't want you getting in
Yeah, you never
Her
know.
friends got, some trauma, so she grew up.
Yeah, puberty hit harder than normal.
Drama
Yeah, hit harder than turning page hitting Royal Order.
God.
There had to be at least one. Listen, there had to be at least one Royal Order joke. One, at least one.
You know, you could have saved that for the end there.
But it worked here.
Never heard that forgiveness permission saying. I thought you guys made that up.
No, that's a
real
fairly
thing.
common thing. But
Wow.
there they are.
It's them. It's everyone's favorite Abbott and Costello XP.
What are you doing here, kid? The Everfree Forest.
Now that's a reference, guys. I'm really clever. I am overflowing with cleverness. Gee, why don't you laugh? Gee, don't you love classic comedians like Abbott and Costello?
Of classics. Sorry, I just hear old firewood. No, so when it comes to this episode, as I mentioned before, there was quite a fair bit of change in, and we'll probably pause just before the big point where we'll discuss where we could have alternatively gone with this. Because as I say, this episode had quite a lot of replanning that had to be done. Not as bad as some other ideas that that we can't go into here, and one particular idea which I know someone is very keen about, but we cannot talk about here either. I will tempt him and I will bait him with it.
Oh, now you know what it's like, huh? Now you know what it's like to be tempted.
I
You
know
can't say anything.
Give a chance eventually, I'll get
Now you understand. Now you understand. Do you stop torturing my protege?
What I will say is I don't know who came up with the initial idea with this cinnamon swirl thing, and I can't remember who did actually. Who remembers?
I think it was Olive.
That was me.
Olive and, well, I think maybe it was Brittany. Brittany, you wrote this episode, right? I get confused with how many people were managing. Brittany, you wrote this.
Yep.
You said you wanted to go with Cinnamon Swirl being interested in Applejack, right?
Yep.
What was your inspiration for that?
I don't think there was. I just thought, why not? And, there has to be a fangirl somewhere.
True.
She's okay.
See, now I can't remember who's the initial idea. I thought it was you, and now I'm thinking maybe it was Decora, or maybe it was Brittany. Oh, you're Brittany. Wait. Maybe it was Olive.
It was so natural, I suppose, that we've all kind of had our own little sort of pause on it.
Didn't everybody make it their idea?
It's Cinnamon Swirl's love interest is now a communist principle. Everyone shares in it equally. But it's one of the greatest parts of this episode, I have to admit. This honestly makes this episode really strong in its own right, and some of the fan art that's come from this is great. And there's that damn clang.
It's a
damn clang. I think I requested specifically, you gotta use this stupid clang effect that we've been having since case 1. You gotta.
Yes, Apple Bloom?
I think it's so funny that Apple Bloom takes advantage of that and tries to use that.
She's very coy with how she does stuff. Yeah.
Talk a big talk, but my only real contribution to this episode was like freaking dropping the G's off of a lot of the words. But
dropping the G's? Getting rid of the G's, Trenton? He wants to get rid of me?
I mean, hey, Mr. G, you're asking for it.
Us Southerners, we don't use the letter G unless we absolutely have to, alright?
If we just pause here, sorry, Al, just real quick.
Yeah.
Pausing on an almost perfect frame there with Lawkeeper Act 2, but we might as well quickly go into some of the alternatives, because this is actually kind of, I believe, where the path of journeys would have split in terms of how the story could have gone. Now, someone will have to correct me, because the initial planning stages are quite forgotten in my mind and my archives, and I am very forgetful, but the initial plans for this, from my recollection, were for Apple Bloom to actually make it through past the guards and head into the Everfree Forest itself. And she would have spent a bit of time like exploring the grounds and everything, and then she would have eventually have come across Equity, who, as you all saw just then, appears at the forest entrance. And there was a whole sequence involving just Apple Bloom and Equity just going back and forth, and then I believe Equity would have given some sage advice, and then Apple Bloom would have left, and we kind of would have got to the end of where we were. It's quite sad that we couldn't use that, because I feel it would have been really useful to give Apple Bloom, but a little bit of, again, some more one sort of time in the sun, so to speak, but also just to get Equity by herself, and really kind of start to flesh her out, one-to-one, really show her a lot more, which we do get in this episode. But I don't know how everyone else feels about it from the sort of PR team side, but I feel like it was definitely a sad thing we couldn't pursue. And the reason for that was just purely because of the sort of, logistics of it's an investigation, and allowing the filly and a new person into the forest would have thrown in some more chaos. And it was
decided... the fact that the timing of it would be weird, because it means that Equity was sitting in the same spot for almost 2 hours. And it was like, I mean, maybe, but also it's like, their logistical concerns were realized that the smart thing to do is to shorten it and have Equity leave and meet Apple Bloom at the entrance. Which I still think worked really well, because it provides a little bit more momentum, where it is kind of like, character exit stage, character enter stage, that sort of thing. But it is a bit of a sad thing that we had to cut out a little more with Apple Bloom and Equity, and kind of do it into a 4-person, scene. But sometimes you just gotta cut your losses, as they say, kill your darlings. Putting that G in right there, in order to, have an actual finished product.
It was one of those things that you end up doing, and I do think, like, we'll get into it as well when the guards do, but one of the things that we learned from this episode as well, just being careful how many people are on the screen, and it's a lesson that we've taken forward into the main series as well, after some self-reflection on how liberal we've been with how many people are kind of like flying around in a case investigation, because people just do get dropped off, and we kind of have it here, unfortunately, with Cinnamon Swell and Stone and Spade. But that was basically the alternative way that this could have gone, is, as I say, that Apple Bloom would have gone in and found Equity and done the discussion there. But instead, we get Equity coming out, and Equity being in this episode was crucial. It was, I think, probably one of the key tenets behind why we wanted to make this in the first place, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure if anyone...
It has been a while, but what I remember when we were going through initial ideas for not just episode to do for BOJ, but then when we got to this idea and we wanted to outline it, one of the things that I suggested was take a moment to actually explore a little bit of Equity's character, because we really didn't have any or anything shown. So my thinking was, well, we have a moment where we can get away from the plot briefly, and that seems to open up something. So I said, let's see how they interact. And I just said, go for it. How does Equity interact with Apple Bloom?
Well, we can now see it. So if we keep playing it, and we'll keep going now.
That name sounds familiar.
I do love that. The name sounds familiar. I may have heard of it once on the back of the cereal box.
You the same thing about what you're doing here. I mean,
just got the concept of like freaking Equity doing like marketing stuff, where she's like a spokesman for products.
Chalky milk.
God, I was gonna say the same thing.
Y'all are gonna say like the milk.
What's the it's not yet. It starts with a Y, I think.
Who?
Yahoo. Oh,
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I think I was speaking to I almost said Equity. I'm losing track of things. I was speaking to SK once after we were all memeing on the chalky milk thing, and I asked her, I think, would Equity like Yoo-hoo milk or like, actual chocolate milk? And I think she's gonna kill me if I get this wrong. I think she said that Equity would be a Yoo-hoo kind of gal.
Yeah.
In her younger days.
We'll see when you get an angry DM in 5 minutes.
She's gonna kill me. She's gonna be like, how dare you spread misinformation on the internet? And I was like, dude, I was just Sorry.
Just hear freaking Jarvy's door get kicked down from.
Oh my god! It's equity! Ah!
Not even SK, it's literally equity.
Holy god! Oh my god! It's
Now-
a horse in my room. What?
Let's quickly just turn to the episode because you're talking about character development of equity, and this is one of the few
This
moments
is
where
it,
we
yeah.
see a lot of.
Little bit
Know
more.
that from the previous trial. Yes.
And it's quite good here because, you know, as we've all established, equity hasn't had that moment to really sit down and talk a lot with everybody. And this is one of her first instances. And you've got a lot of a personal attachment to equity now, Jarvy.
Oh yeah.
I feel it's fair if you kind of, you know, take the lead on this, but it's good to see equity has a little bit more to her than just, you know, what seems to be the perpetually angry mayor all the time.
Yeah, there's always the way I think that she's rough around the edges, but something like that does not necessarily mean that she doesn't have a heart. And I remember when I was reading the initial scripts and, you know, helping revise and edit, one thing that I was kind of noticing was almost unconsciously the PR writers were touching upon this almost symbolic idea of almost Apple Bloom worming her way into Equity's heart in a way, and you kind of see it here, where it's kind of like it almost. I say worming, but really, I guess the way I'd better phrase it is like she worms Equity's heart in a way, like something resonates, and I really like that little, you know, start of an inclination. So I said, why don't we just expand upon it a little bit more? You can kind of see here, you know, in this little beat of silence.
Yeah.
It is kind of like, you know, something's warmed up.
Yeah, and like freaking, I love the idea of like freaking Equity trying to keep up appearances in front of the guards, but like still wanting to lower herself down to speak earnestly with this opponent who's suffering.
It's a very subtle sort of leveling herself down in a way. I mean, it doesn't really succeed because very shortly after this, you know, the guard comes back up, but just that little question of, do you not, you know, have a father in your life? That's a very personal question, but it's not like Equity talking down to Apple Bloom. It's like a genuine, what happened sort of question. And I wanted that. I wanted to show that Equity is not all mean.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
He's a pony.
when I recorded that super emotional part where she's talking about her parents, my voice got all gross and emotional, and my voice was all raspy after for like the rest of the session. Like maybe I should have started by now.
I suggest you get back to
And yeah, you'll want to definitely be making sure that we don't, you know, BAs don't damage their voices in any capacity. But blimey, the delivery on those moments were spot on.
Oh,
very, very, very good.
You can see a moment where Equity doesn't even get mad at Apple Bloom. Like, she actually admits, this is an uncomfortable topic, I don't want to talk about it. Which is interesting, you know, because it's like, okay, Equity could have yelled at her, but she actually admitted vulnerability.
Right.
The sixth member, known as the Lawkeeper, is
We get a nice
Spoilers, I
flashback here.
have reason to be attached to Equity.
whenever the previous Lawkeeper either retires or passes away.
I will say that, unrelated to everything, but that particular explanation of the High Council has caused a slight headache in the long term. Which I'll go into at another point. You know, there's
Operation Revamp something.
Yeah, Operation Revamp something. Oh my god, help. Oh my god.
That's for sure. But there's something off about her.
Yeah, there's that.
Nina and Apple Bloom noticing something.
And it's good. And it's nice to also show that, you know, Apple Bloom is smart. She is a pretty, you know, smart filly. She picks up on her family's habits, and
that's why she's the best crusader.
I know.
What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be cobweb in the stables?
Shouldn't you be cobweb in the stables? I'm going to be using that as a phrase of expression whenever someone is not doing anything on the team.
Yeah.
Are you cobweb in the stables? You better be.
but I couldn't find you anywhere.
This freaking line, I've been flipping Ponyville darn near upside down to try and find it. Cadet said that's the most southern she's ever sounded in her entire life delivering that line. I wrote it. Like, I think that's like the one real line. No, but that's like one of two real lines I wrote for this episode, so it makes me proud that I brought out Cadet's freaking southern accent.
Yeah, that's a nice cadence to it. It's like boppity boppity boppity, but like smooth, southern smooth.
Ponyville darn near upside down trying to find it.
I do have a southern friend, and it does match the way she talks at the bada. Her phrases do come off just like that, and it's so that like little colloquials. Is that what you would call them?
Colloquialism.
Colloquial, yeah. Those are just really lovely touches that bring out the characters in the world that just a little bit more.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. It's in those corners where you can make people think it's the original.
I was really scared, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this song! I remember this song.
What's this one again?
This is a pretty song. This is Waltz of Sweet Apple Acres.
I even like the name.
I had some notes. It is inspired. Okay, full disclosure, I love Joe Hisaishi, and my favorite Studio Ghibli film is Spirited Away. So Waltz of Sweet Apple Acres is actually inspired by one of my favorite pieces from Spirited Away, which is Reprise of Chihiro, which plays. This is gonna be a spoiler for people who haven't seen Spirited Away. Sorry, when Chihiro and oh my god, the dragon dude's name, whose name I'm blanking on. When they reunite and then she remembers her name, this is when that plays. I followed the exact same structure actually because I was like, I want to make a song that sounds vaguely Hisaishi like. Something that people did not notice in the episode, but which you'll notice if they rewatch it. Their Devotions theme is actually in this song. Like the chorus, I put it in here because I felt that it was thematically appropriate for an episode that's talking a lot about family. I just put it in a major key and changed some of the progression. Just a little bit of a, nerdy musician little fun fact. Right here, actually, this is a major key reversal of Fair Devotion's chorus.
Oh, interesting.
Which reminds me, the title of, Not Far From the Tree, and like the concept applies to Apple Bloom, applies to Lock Paper Equity, and it applies to somebody else who's not even in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Apple Bloom foreshadowing.
Aye. And one of the
bye.
And one of the nice things about this episode is that we also started to really play around with utilizing music at the end of the episodes as well, and really taking advantage of the full tracks. And then we get a lovely return to another PMD, because we can never escape PMD, except, of course, in the final BOJ. But we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, this was, I think, it's not unfair to say I think this was probably out of season one people's least favorite. Overall, in terms of reaction, because every season is going to have a weaker one, and I'll admit that. And I think this was probably one of the weaker ones. But when it came to what we wanted to achieve, again, we got what we wanted. We wanted to start showing more about the characters. We wanted to give Apple Bloom a little bit of a chance to go because we really do enjoy her. And I think, even though we didn't get what we've wanted fully out of the initial ideas, we were still able to deliver some really, really impressive moments, like, Arts' little speech about Apple Bloom, but, Arts' ability to do the speech, I should say, just help, further show not only her talent, but just also the emotional depth that, a lot of these characters wanted to go to. And it was just fun to also throw in a little bit of I
also want to point out
as well,
for the sake of context, this is the first Bonds and Justice episode where the PR writers actually wrote multiple scenes. So it is completely understandable if it feels a little rough or a little different around the edges. It is their first, attempt at writing a longer episode. And I can tell you, when I started writing for EOJ, it was a learning curve, just to figure out, how do you manage multiple scenes all at once? I would honestly say that they performed admirably for it being the first. And, I think that definitely is worth recognizing. It's only 3 scenes, but most of it feels pretty tight. I love the Apple Bloom one with Equity and the guards. I mean, I think it's cute. I also think it's, very heartwarming. It's the heart of it.
And that's what BOJ ultimately is there for, the bonds of justice. You know what? We've got a little bit of time. I know we don't have any time left at all, but I want to do it quickly. I want to quickly just do it's a brief deep dive into how that name came to be, because no one's asked about it yet, and that's kind of surprising. But I was doing a little bit of archive trawling, and I came across the initial discussions, and there was a couple of interesting names that were initially thrown up as potential suggestions. One of them from one of our audio engineers at the time, Joel, came up with the idea of Pillar of Bonds, and then PPW yourself, you started throwing out a load of different ones: Forger Bonds, True Bonds, and then you came up with Of Justice and Bonds. And then I stewed on that for a little bit and ended up just going with, since we've got elements of justice, we'll just do bonds of justice. And, you know, I think in retrospect, the whole of justice thing, considering what else has also obtained the of justice title to it, is great because it keeps that consistency. But yeah,
there's a lot of justices. Take the Supreme Court.
We are.
I can't believe that slipped out of my mouth. Oh,
I am the Supreme Court.
Wow, snuck up on me there. We really, yeah, the name really stuck well, but it was awesome to just sort of see everyone's creativity, because again, lots of people had to say, and I'm glad we went with Bonds of Justice. I'm glad that I think it works. I think especially with now how we're going to go into season 2, and the plans I've already got for season 2, I think Bonds works better than any other term. And also I just like saying BOJ because, you know, Bodge. Buy more bonds.
Buy more bonds. All right. Anybody, anything they want to say before we head on to the one?
The only.
No.
I suppose if it's okay to discuss kind of what led to the creation of this, like what started it, the idea.
The fifth one.
No, let's talk about fourth one. I thought.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I could do the fifth one too. These actually will go back to back perfectly. This was back when I was on the PR team, and I joined a meeting, and we were discussing what ideas should we do, what story should we tell. The first one, I think I proposed this one. This is one of the few that was eventually became a BOJ. I brought up the thought about how. Like what happened with Apple Bloom between when she was told to go back to the barn, or not the barn, back to the Apple.
The barn.
The farm. Go to the barn, Apple Bloom.
Wow. We're animals of a pretender.
You're sober, Apple. Go drunk.
She was told to go back to the farm, her home.
When she gets grounded, she just gets locked in the barn. Oh my god.
Yeah, she just gets locked in the barn with the pigs and the other animals.
On to Justice episode 6, Apple Bloom slowly starves to death.
No!
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here from the new team leader of the PR. Look forward to BOJ 6. Eat an apple.
I've done enough with Apple Bloom.
So basically, I had this. I think I noted is that we don't actually know how Apple Bloom went to being grounded to the boutique's been broken into, and that's kind of where the idea came from. It's like, what if Apple Bloom was like going back to try to find evidence and help the case, because that's what the Key Mark investigators would do. Mm-hmm. And for BOJ5, does anyone remember who suggested the idea for a Turnaloo episode?
Oh, that was right. I'm going to dive in here because that was basically, that was me from day one when this was going to be an opportunity. And I had a lot of help with getting the initial sort of groundwork laid with Jarvy here and everyone else in the team. But I knew from the moment that we were going ahead with this that there was a Turnaloo. There was just never any doubt.
Or if you prefer Scooter Page.
Scooter. Yes. Your mileage may vary. It was something that really, obviously I'm a shipper at heart, right? I'm an absolute awful shipper. And I felt, right, this is going to be the biggest thing that we want to do. And I didn't know much about the story again at the time. And I got to remind everyone here, my understanding of how Case 2 was going to end only came about slightly after I took on manager of PR, and I didn't really know what I could or couldn't do, but I was very, very much going to force this to happen. And so the initial ideas for this episode were all over the place. At one point, I thought about this happening before the case. Another time I thought it would happen in the holding cell in the detention center. And we kept bouncing. And as the case progressed and as timing went on, we realized that it was just never going to be able to be something that could happen in the past. So we just accepted that it was going to have to be something that happened in the quote unquote future, after the case. But it meant that from BOJ2 onwards, every single time we were making something, in the back of my mind I was going, this is great, this is wonderful, but that Turnaloo episode, I wanted to get in there. And finally, when we finally got through, and after that long hiatus with episode 9, we got straight into it earlier. I think it was earlier this year. I can't remember which month it was. But Jarvy and I sat down, discussed the general plans of how we felt with it, and I just let Jarvy go to town on taking lead on writing it. But the general background to this has been in the back of my mind 2 years now. It was something that wanted to be there, was going to be there. That was a very impassionate way of just saying it was always there.
When we decided to go Positive Justice was to cap off Case 2 with a Scootaloo and Train Page episode. It just was the inevitable. Sometimes you know how things end. I think when I was brought on board with BOJ, even with G, I was like, before we even formally discussed it, I was like, we need to have a Turing and Scootaloo episode. It just makes sense because it's not going to happen in the case.
Yes. Yeah.
But you have to. You got to take that opportunity. So I was definitely immensely excited to be told that yes, Mr. G wants the same thing, but I was also honored to have the permission to actually go ahead and write it for us. I know I asked the PR team, I asked you specifically, would it be okay if I took the initiative for this one? You guys helped me with editing and refining it, and you guys were absolutely on board and really supportive. So I really appreciate that.
It was, but it was something that still needed time and preparation and planning, and we spent a good while debating a lot of stuff, and I think we will get to this one. We may pause a little bit more often at certain decision moments because there was quite a lot of discussion about not only where they were going to be, how it was going to be, context for certain things. So you will probably see us pausing a fair bit. So we'll get into the episode and we'll pause at the moments which matter because there's going to be like 3 or 4. So without further ado, let's begin the finale of season 1.
Also, this is another one that we voice directed.
Yes, that's correct. We also managed to do the sort of freeway voice direction system. However, there is a bit of a funny story with that as well, which I'll go into when we get to a particular pause. This was this starting point. So we'll start with the starting point, the flashbacks. We really wanted to highlight everything that had happened, and that's why we started with all these flashbacks. And Salman hates flashbacks for justifiable reasons. Finding the audio is a pain, but in this instance, we kept it to a really, good amount, and we cut out quite a lot as well. I remember going back to Jarvy and saying, "I want loads."
You helped cutting it down so we didn't have so many.
And then we had cut more in the editing.
20 seconds, which gave us a lot more opening.
It was a lot of editing. I was very much more like, I will say this was the first time I took director control of a lot of things, and I'm glad I did because I'm very happy with the final result. A lot more.
The original script had more flashbacks at the beginning and more flashbacks at the end, and
thanks to what we've just heard,
there comes a certain time where you have to ask how much of this is original content. What's there is gorgeous, but we had to make sure that what was there got the most attention, the attention it deserved, so to speak.
There's only one pony who could have, and that's the son of the victim himself.
There's also an inspired reason for us not only to explore flashbacks to throughout the entire case in context, but structurally speaking, and structurally, I mean within a script, what I wanted was to create this sense of, I'm just going to throw the audience into it. Like no context, no build up. You're going to be immediately thrown into this. Kind of like how a rush of memories is. You just suddenly start remembering one thing to another. You're making those connections. I wanted to create sort of unconscious, frenetic energy, which is counter to what a flashback usually is. But by building it up like this, doing a lot of quick cuts, it creates this sort of like, why are we building up to this, this reveal?
It had that impact. Yeah, was this... Was it Shannon on this one? Oh, no, so the background.
Shannon is Scootaloo.
No, I was referring to the background. I believe that was... I want to say it was Saturn again.
That was... I think that was Null.
All's here, sorry, Al.
Gosh,
Right.
the idea of having this kind of art for this episode and the way it was executed is just beautiful.
Al, are you there? Sorry. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Still got some time.
No, sorry, keep it paused, Al. Apologies. This is the joy of me being quick to say pause and then not being clear of what I wanted to pause on. And I cut you off. Apologies, peeps.
Oh, you're good. No, I just wanted to say art pretty, like art.
ABI is a godsend.
It was, and I want to bring to touch these because there was a purpose behind them as well as because they look nice. So Nihi, as mentioned,
Where's music for it?
We're going to keep... We know how to use music to make the mood right in BOJ, but we don't know how to do it in our DCs. So when it came to the art we wanted to use for BOJ5, I have always been enamored with visual novels, and I love them. I really do. They're one of my favorite forms of game mediums. And you'll all have probably heard some of the tracks in earlier BOJs, particularly in BOJ2, with one particular visual novel, Katwa Shoujo. And
which BG and I both love.
We both love. Emmy is superior, and
You are nice, my friend. Nice.
I will be nice just this once. Nox actually got.
I can't wait until I'm old enough to play this video game. I swear, I keep hearing about it.
And it inspired me to want to try and replicate that in BOJ. And so when we were coming around to the planning, I wanted there to be these sort of visual novel still moments. And that's why we have a bit of a difference. That's why we have two styles in this episode, because I wanted to show off someone's talent. And in particular, that was Nihi. Nihi does some fantastic fan art. They're not a part of the team, but I've always been really impressed with how they draw characters, and so I wanted to offer the chance for them to participate in one of our productions, and they were very happy to oblige. But I also just wanted to tap into that visual novel sort of aesthetic, the character expressions, the change. Animation and the pony rigs that we use, they're great, they're really flexible, but stuff like this, as I'm sure most of you felt, is much more captivating, much more memorable. You will sit there and you will remember and see this image, and it will be burned into your retinas, especially one image later, I'm sure. But as I say, this had a sort of narrative, narrative in the sense of I wanted it to look nice, and it was something that let's go technical. Sorry, technical reason. I wanted to pay homage. Aesthetic, technical. I want to pay homage to visual novels. That was the key reason. That's why this exists as it does, and that's why we have that dynamic. Is we wanted to try and really show off what that medium can bring to us. And I'll also bring in quickly, there was a comment by Arts at the beginning that we did do this live direction, and we did, and Scootaloo, so Shannon and Optic, Turn-In and Overgrowth, Fair Devotion all sat down, we did that, and it was great, and it really highlighted again the benefit of doing live read-ins and table reads as a collective. But what unfortunately happened was after we did all the recording, dear Overgrowth had apparently not recorded any of her performance lines for this episode, had been recording in the table read whilst everyone else had, so she had to go back and listen to all of the other recordings from both Optic and Shannon in order to remember how they presented what they did, and ultimately it still ended up being great. But it just goes to show, even if you do manage to organise, sometimes you always just need to be double careful that you don't accidentally forget to record your actual lines. But yeah, this episode really, again, tied together a lot of things that we learned and really gave us an opportunity to show off some of the stuff that really mattered. And yeah, so on to more parts, unless anyone else has anything they want to add to this little sort of visual novel-esque style.
He also made the background for this shot, by the way, including the little stuff in the background, which I suggested. It was a rendition of the interior to Fair Devotion's house background, but from this perspective, including the wedding shot, the baby shot, and I think that's the best teacher award.
Yes.
The background. Yeah. But we can continue.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, this might just be me, but the little lashes between Fair's eyes, they kind of look like eyebrows, and when I first saw them, especially on the shocked face, it kind of looked like Fair was angry, not shocked. That might just be me, though.
It's one of those things that I again learned about this visual novel style, and it's good you raised, is that there needs to be clear direction on this. And we had an incident with this again that you've just reminded me that, and we'll let the scene play out because we've covered most of the main points. So if you just want to keep resuming now, we need to make sure we plan those visual novel stills a lot better in the future, because sometimes there can be a little bit of an inconsistency in how things look between different stills. One other thing that I also want to highlight, now that you've mentioned the face, you'll notice that Fair Devotion has less bags under her eyes than the actual rig does. It's very subtle, but I made it clear to Nihi that I wanted this to demonstrate that she'd actually got, a little bit more rest since everything had happened. The weight was literally off of her shoulders and her heart, so what was really keeping her up that entire time was having to hide all of these secrets and the trauma, but she got a bit of that out of her when we get to the end of 2.9, so she's obviously going to look a little less tired. And the koi expression is still one of my favorite from those different expressions.
That's a mom who knows.
That took a while to get right as well. We had to go through 3 or 4 different iterations.
I'm just packing up my things.
Last thing I wanted to say, even though it's not on the screen anymore, but I like that it came around full circle, because Ace Attorney is a visual novel, so it made sense to make something that kind of reflects the typical visual novel.
Not fine, are you?
And now this dynamic of Scootaloo pressing turn-in, very, very quick, and Kadawa Shoujo music again.
This is which one?
Hanako's. It's Hanako's theme, if I'm not mistaken, or is it not Hanako's?
It's not
theme?
Innocence. Comfort. I think it's Comfort.
Oh, regardless, it's Turn-In and Scootaloo. Really, I wanted to highlight that Turn-In was going to push back a lot, and that's something that Jarvy, I think you may remember when we were doing some more revisions, and something that I've been very keen on in future script development is really getting characters to hold on to their what they're feeling, having to dig a little bit, because it's not easy to talk about what's happened. This line was great.
It's funny.
More humor, and
I think I wrote that line, and it went through a few different iterations because I was like, I want some kind of freaking outburst there. I just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah,
and it came out well. Came out really well.
Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure to work with Shannon and Optic. They take direction so well, and they already know their stuff. We don't have to do any handholding because they're already super great actors. We just have to take them from great to amazing.
This is true. And we worked on those sort of page by page basis, and each time we kept going back and just kept getting better and better and better, and the end result was, we all saw the end result, and it really was impactful. And looking at the sort of what's happening here again, Scootaloo and Turn-In, the realization of what they're actually looking at now is, the consequence of their actions, literally in their face. What have they done? What they've had to endure? You can't escape it, and that's I think, Jarvy, you'll have to correct me here, but I think one of the big tenets you wanted to push with, their dynamic was how bravery and facing what you were, what you've seen, what you've done, how you are, what you want to be. That theme of bravery was one of the key things that drove your writing through this episode, was it not?
It was, and we'll get to a line that basically sums it all up. But courage. This is what I would use to define their dynamic. not necessarily that it was cute. It was cute, or friendly. It was friendly, but in my view, based on what they've gone through and just how things started and how they end, courage is what defines their dynamic more than any other emotion, any other idea.
What I meant was that I saw a lot of ponies.
This is 3 stars.
There you
This
go.
is 3 stars. Yeah.
There you go. You get it. So much Kawa Shoujo music again.
Oh, this shout out want to shout out Melody for this. Also, G, you're gonna let me get away with saying this. So this quote right here, I can't believe no one got it, but hey, I'm a nerd. That's from To Kill a Mockingbird, my favorite book of all time, from my favorite quote of all time about true courage. I literally ripped it straight from the book. I changed a couple things so it doesn't sound like a southern aphorism, but I mean, guys, come on, it was perfect. It had to be said. I love To Kill a Mockingbird, guys. I love having the ability to put in a reference to it.
I really appreciate it. You're a great friend.
You're a great friend. Oof.
Oh, that's the F word.
Well, you're welcome.
But I mean, hey, true courage, when you are faced with the inevitable, but you do what you do anyway, and you see it through no matter what. Wow, it's like he was pinpointing the theme of this episode, of this story.
And it resonates, as we see here. And this moment of turning away, well,
No matter what, I can't let this go.
it's also good to see like Scootaloo develop a bit more from just that one-sided crush thing. Like she's getting something here, she's learning a lesson, which I think we really did need to develop a bit more in the initial episodes with this. But I'm glad we capitalized on it. And yes, emotion. If I'm not mistaken,
Unwavering Emotions. This was a remix actually from someone that we credited. Shannon. She didn't yell, but she was like, "I'm going to cry at this episode" when I showed off the OST, and I was like, "Yeah, that was the point." It's such a short piece. It's only like 50 seconds before it loops, but I've always loved it, and I love the rendition that I found. And it fits. Unwavering Emotions. I mean, that's what's going on right here. This is Scootaloo pouring her heart out, trying to tell Turning why he's so important to her. I think that's a little rambly, but she's nervous, she's flustered, but she's getting somewhere to the point. She's getting at the heart of the matter.
She's got to build it up. And then we get one of the
saccharine, but so nice.
The background for this was well beyond what I expected, and I'll be completely honest, it shattered my expectation.
So pretty. Can't.
I wanted to, for sure, but
Shannon's amazing.
This, though, is when I mean the visual novel style has the most power. This is what I wanted to demonstrate. Again, we could have iterated on this, could have made it a little bit cleaner, but I'm still happy, very, very happy with how these ended up being. And this particular expression...
This is so cute.
Oh, it's so cute. I died when I saw that.
Little sweetheart.
Shannon just delivering the line like a pro.
I know.
Like you.
It's like, I don't just like you, I like you like
right,
you.
Not to tell you the truth. My truth.
Yeah.
So tempted to make another anime reference, but I kept it very, very minimal.
I'm surprised.
If I think a reference works, not by it being clever, but by it accentuating a theme, I'll go for it.
Look at how cute!
I know.
Shock's
He's adorable.
Art style.
He is.
Poor kid, he's so confused.
Tell me that they felt that way about me before.
When we get to the end of this segment, we'll probably break down briefly like the general thinking behind it. But this general theme, it flowed really nicely. It felt natural. It felt right.
There is a tightness to it, a cohesion, an intelligent beating heart behind it. It's clean. It's not too long. It's not short. And the music fades out, and then we get
the truth.
Sorry.
Oh.
It's okay, Turning. But
by the way, G, there are 2 tracks coming up that I don't think you noticed, but there's a very specific reason why I chose this one that's coming up in anticipation of the last one.
Well, when we get to when we switch back from the visual novel style to the regular style, we'll pause there and have a brief comment about it, because I think we've got quite a bit to talk about that.
I'll be quick.
Don't worry, I won't. We'll pause here then.
Right. So this song, it's also from, obviously it's from Katawa Shoujo. It's a really beautiful piece. The name is, why am I blanking on it? I had it in my notes. I'm going to pull it up real quick. It's Friendship. It's literally called Friendship in Katawa Shoujo. But I don't think it's just a friendship, because if you listen to that song, it's canon in D. It's the wedding march.
What, Pachelbel's canon in D, or?
It is. It's the same key. It has a couple of the same chords. Yeah, it's got obviously a different arpeggiation for the bass line, but it's canon in D. But I recognized the chord structure immediately when I heard it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to put it in here. It's a really cute piece. It's short. It's compelling. When we get into when the next song plays, the reason why I bring that up is because there is now this canon in D music motif that actually plays between those 2 songs that I was very intentionally playing into. And obviously no one would notice it because they're not me, who obsesses a little bit too much sometimes. But that was like my main thing. That little Easter egg here was, even though this is a friend-shipping episode, there's something very romantic about it. And what's the most cliched, romantic, and yet really beautiful piece out there in terms of, romantic piano pieces? Canon indeed, which plays at every wedding.
But unfortunately,
guys,
even though there was, wedding bells in the song, there was no wedding bells to be rung for the future. I think I want to briefly go over why we made this decision, because we spent a good little while when you got to this point. I know you called me up and you were like, gee, this could go 50-50. I don't know which way to go. So we had to break it down, rationalize what was our thinking, why did we go this way, what was the plan, what did we want to achieve? And so we sat down, we got to the point. Initially, I think you had written it down first draft that this wasn't going to happen. So I think from the very outset, you'd already planned it not to go down, or had you not even gotten to that point? Yeah, I can't quite recall.
My leaning was always towards that they'd just be friends, but I recognized that it could go 50-50, which I wanted to discuss with you, because I was like, I want to go one way, but I don't know what you envision.
And so that was... Yeah, and that was the thing. I agreed. So when we sat down and chatted, we basically looked at everything. And the main reason that we ended up saying that Scootaloo and Turning Page couldn't work is that I didn't feel there was any earned romantic thing there. I think one of the things about relationships that people sometimes forget, especially in modern romance culture, and I say this as someone who absolutely goddamn adores romance, and I eat that stuff up all the time. It's very bad of most mediums to present relationships in a sense of there's affection, and this affection now must mean you have this relationship. And it's like, yeah, you can go about that way, you can live your life like that way, but sometimes you also need to be earning the other person's affection. It's all well and good you have that sense of feeling, it's all well and good that this person's awesome and that they're so cute and they could be cute together, but Turning is not in that mind frame. He's not in that right mindset, but he's also got a lot of issues that he needs to deal with. He's definitely got major anger issues. He's got major, things that he does have to focus on. Daddy issues now. He's not someone who listens to authority very well, and what Scootaloo is seen is a cult with real tenacity and spirit, but he's still someone who really hasn't shown he could do good for Scootaloo. What would he have offered Scootaloo in a relationship in sense of growth? Nothing. Really. There would have been some sort of cutesy, I've got a sword, I'll protect you. It would have been the traditional knight in shining armor trope. which is ironic because he pushes one into a statue. But we there was nothing there for him to justify Scootaloo's feelings, and there was nothing for Scootaloo to have also earned his affection as well. Right. I think that's like another key thing is we all look at Scootaloo's affection, but Turnin is his own identity, his own individual. He was someone. He's a colt. He's a young lad who doesn't need to go into a relationship if he doesn't want one. Doesn't need this at this point. And I know you want to say something, Jarvy, and I'll let you get into it, but I really wanted to highlight, like, people need to remember that these characters, they deserve to be their own individuals as much as they could be a relationship or a couple, and they need to be able to identify themselves. And in a theory, and I know this is a conceptualized thing and these aren't real characters, but to us they are in some regards because we care about what we write. You got to give everybody the sense that they belong to, they deserve to have their own identity and their own sense of self. And if that sense of self is not going to be benefited by another pony, even if they may be a nice character, even if we like them, you got to give that character the justification and the respect to just sort of go, they just won't work. And that's what we ended up saying. That's what we ended up feeling. And Jarvy, I'll let you go in with this because I know you probably have something
that I was going to add was it wouldn't have made sense for them to end up being a couple because the whole thing with this episode was true courage is knowing that you're not going to succeed, but you try it anyway and you go through with it and you see it through no matter what. I mean, while I could see that people were like, oh, it'd be really cute coupling, thematically speaking, it would not have made any sense. It would have been thematically inappropriate, given what I knew about what the episode was going to be and how, aside from the fact that it's just me, flexing on everyone and saying, I'm going to throw a To Kill a Mockingbird reference in here because I can, ha 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 ha. It just wouldn't have made any sense for it to end any other way. This is a more mature outcome, I think. And we needed that sort of maturity, that sort of sense of, you know what? I like you, you like me, but it's two different ways. But that's okay. Like, we need more of that sort of representation in media, I think. And while this is a very small drop in the ocean, that sort of positivity towards feelings and relationships and confessions, really, I think that's important.
Yes.
It's not important enough that things get reciprocated. It's more important that one's feelings are acknowledged and validated without compromising the others.
Yep.
And that's what I wanted to do in having Scootaloo confess and turning to say, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sorry I don't feel the same way. But you are a brave person too.
Yes.
That's why I wanted that dynamic to eventually just naturally fall into, it's not a rejection. In fact, it's the opposite of rejection. It's acceptance. What's healthier than that?
Bang on.
I can't really think of it. Yeah. That's why when people are getting mad, I was like, that's the whole point.
It's maturity. And we were happy with maturity.
To accept it rather than to, do something cute. Because there's maturity here. And that's the whole thing.
Yeah. And I suppose speaking for the other side of the love spectrum, it's really kind of nice to not see the titular couple getting together, but also to have that honesty between them. I think it shows something really healthy that we often don't get to see because romance is really romanticized in our culture, and it's sometimes put such in the forefront that we don't really consider much else. We just instinctively look at two people interacting and going, they're a couple, they're in love. So this was just a really refreshing thing to see, and I couldn't help but kind of giggle at everyone getting mad because that's exactly what they expected, and that's not what they got. Yet at the same time, it's better than what they were expecting, in my opinion.
Yeah, like
I will admit this outright. I'm a hopeless romantic. Like, I love romance. It's it's a nice feeling, but I also think that you don't need to build your whole life around it.
No, and
what Scootaloo needed here was not a boyfriend. What she needed was a friend, and Turning was more than happy to provide.
Yeah.
What?
Did you have something you want to say? Sorry, I thought you wanted to jump in.
Adding on to what PPW said, I think the media creates an unrealistic expectation for relationships, and a lot of people are disappointed with the real thing. It's really more of a commitment than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because what is romance even?
But what's his romance?
I've always been. Hang on. Maybe I can answer that. I've always been of the opinion that, like, functionally, the only difference between how a very close friendship and how a romantic relationship operates in practice is, like, the intimacy, and that at the core, both are, based on extremely strong connections and people, enjoying each other's company and playing off of each other well. And so, like, romantic, rejection is not a defeat. And, like, I know in a lot of cases it doesn't exactly work that way. It depends on how much you're willing to, like, commit to a friendship. But having somebody who you love spending time with, who is beneficial for, your well-being, and who you feel like just like a worthy presence in your world, having that kind of person as a friend, not as a romantic partner, should not be considered, failure.
Showed me what that word means.
Oh yeah.
Back into seeing this now as well. Again, like as Jarvy said, showing that maturity. This is the reciprocation. This is the acceptance of the pony. You didn't get accepted in confession, but you as an individual has been seen, has been validated nonetheless. A good lesson for a lot of people is, don't diminish someone for their feelings, because they have a reason for those feelings. And if you diminish someone else for feeling something towards you, if it's healthy, if they're doing it in a healthy manner, and you're diminishing it, you're diminishing yourself, and you really shouldn't do that. People, again, in a healthy manner, in a right mind frame, doing the right thing, you should always give people that opportunity to grow and explore and identify how they feel. And everyone should respect each other's space in how far people want to go in there. Everyone has their space, their garden, and if people allow you into that garden, great. But, don't just, dump trash on the other person's garden because they said they wanted to come in. It's a two-way street. It's always a two-way street.
Oh, absolutely.
And now we get to end with another awesome custom track, but also something special, because this adorable noise. The ending was really something that I think a lot of people missed and got wrong, and we'll highlight it in a second. But it was this ending. I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to be something that we hadn't done before. I wanted to really try and play into this idea that this was a proper piece and its own story, because we didn't open with a text box at all. That's something we've never done, really, and we end without any text box. This feels like its own story. This does feel like an actual, exactly. It doesn't get contained. Everything flows from the moment the flashbacks happen until where we go. Everything is just happening. There's no disjointing. There's no breakage. Just the story is moving along as it is. And this ending, I felt like we needed to keep that flow going. And the music, well done again, Jarvy.
This is straight up. I literally just took. You're gonna hear it right as we get to the bridge to chorus. By the way, goodbye, Scootaloo. My idea. He would not say goodnight. He'd say goodbye because this is the end.
It's the end.
This right here. This is canon D, guys. I can't believe no one heard it. I just took the melody. I mean, I could. It's copyright free, but this is just canon D.
And for this to the night sky.
I was very inspired, obviously, by canon D, but also I was inspired by, I'm just gonna say it, romance anime. A lot of the confession music that I was just listening to get ideas. I wanted to follow similar structure. You also notice that, much like with Walt and with Blue, this is not a game piece. This feels more like a scored piece for a scene or a moment. So it's just me continuing this sort of experimentation.
It was Null, by the way,
pretty.
The background for the. It was Null. I just saw it on the credits. Wanted to clarify earlier. Null for the house exterior and Saturn for the sky. But it's a wonderful piece, Jarvy, and I'm so glad we were able to not only get the piece to shine, but we also get this wonderful ending credits. Yeah, time everything, and timing. My favorite track in the main series is the last track playing during the end when the credits are about to come on screen, when the poster is, and just that wonderful march sound. And we got it again here, and I'm so happy.
I had to make the credits.
And yes, had to make the credits.
And you did lovely, Al.
Yeah, that looks great.
And as we end with that little we thought we'd leave you all with a little bit of a hope that there'd be more, and of course, there would be more.
I mean, how could we not?
Exactly.
It's so pretty. It's such a pretty piece. Like, I know musicians will love, songs that they make, and they'll be critical of their own work. And I've been in the past very critical. I love Scootaloo's Heart, dude. It's so pretty. I'm like, I don't know if I made this or not, but I did. But also, it's like, it's so pretty. I just love it. I love just putting it on. It's so nice.
And I'm glad, and I know that we had this kind of thing, but I know when I first heard it, and you can attest this, I know I said that's our end credits song. I said that, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad. I know we had a bit of a not like a hissy fit over like trying to get the timing right, and I was like, oh, it may need to be extended, and you were like, no, it's going to be this way. And we wanted this to be right because we really did want this to be the one that gave BOJ season 1 the send off it deserved, and to show what BOJ season 2 can offer. That, to me, was the second. So there was, again, 3 things we wanted to achieve. First, we wanted to show off the visual novel style. And I think we got a really good first round of it. A massive thank you to you again. Second, we wanted to really sort of tie up relationship and show development and maturity in a relationship and show that we're not just, crazy shippers, even though we all are. And third, we just wanted to really highlight what BOJ can offer, because this series will have value, and in season 2 especially, so many awesome ideas already been drafted for what we can do, and we got to show a lot of great talent along the way, and that's ultimately what made BOJ season 1 as a whole just wonderful. Getting something we could creatively do whatever we wanted with, play with, and give everyone of you guys the chance to just sort of see some of our more creative side, even though we're already quite creative in the main series as it is.
What can you do when you step outside the Ace Attorney formula? You can write great content still. That's what I want to do with this episode, and I want to say and even suggest that we succeeded. This does not feel like an Ace Attorney episode.
No.
Nor does it feel like an MLP episode.
No.
It feels like its own thing.
And I'm glad we
feels like an audio drama.
Oh, it's almost like we started with one and ended with an audio drama. What is this? Circular?
I love narrative.
Yeah.
Gotta love the format.
Right. I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat, and unless anyone here wants to say anything, and then we'll wrap up this DC very shortly, because we've been going for a little bit longer than we had anticipated. But I'm glad. I wanted to give this series as much of a as much of a sort
send off
introspect. Yeah, send off and introspective, because, the main series always gets a little bit of love with DCs. And I thought, well, screw it. There's a lot of planning into this side series as well. It wasn't as, I will say, like, as a learning point, we definitely need to make sure we plan some of the side stories within the main content. And that's something we've learned from Operation Revamp, and something that a lot of the planning, and I got to give credit here to Jarvy, alongside a lot of other people as well, for, really helping plan the story going forward as a whole, because it's just opened up so many avenues for wonderful side stories that we can tell. We want to make this side series just as strong as the main series, and we were limited by a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness among key individuals, myself included, for a long time. And now we don't have that limitation. I've been fortunate enough to be granted the role of director by Al. I've been working hard with the writing staff, Jarvy included, to get plans in place for the next case, and I'm so excited. I don't know what else to say, but I'm just really excited. And the PR team here, Trenton now is the new team leader for PR, and I really must highlight his, wonderful efforts so far as the team leader for PR. And Brittany and the rest of the PR team, Decora, Olive, Jin, they all put in a solid shift. We've got some new PR team writers as well. Maria
and Maria, their names are, and they are the best.
Exactly. They're helping out with the art, and they're also going to contribute to writing. So we've got a lot of great talent. We're ready to go. But again, I've got to also point out, like, PPW helping to start all of this again, and Arts for being a really helpful director as well when it comes to voice direction. So got some questions in the chat. Any hints I can give about... we got Dawn. Well, I'll go to Imperfect as well. Any hints you can give about who's going to be in the next BOJ? I will say that people appearing in Case 3 will appear in BOJ. That's the hint you're going to get. Dawn.
Oh, you don't say.
Outside of that, are there any MLP characters or stories in the past that perhaps help inspire any of BOJ and its world? Anybody want to take that one?
good question. I mean, I'm a fanfic writer. I'm just gonna admit that. Okay, I just put a crosshair on my head, but whatever. So I read a lot and I write a lot of fanfics for ponies. I was probably inspired a lot by some of my favorite short stories on Femfic. Stuff by Short Skirts, Flash Gen, a couple other notable authors who've had the pleasure of talking to and just, learning from. Stuff like that. I mean, and obviously, me being me, I took inspiration from non-fanfic works, like To Kill a Mockingbird. As a writer, you use everything in your toolbox, be that fanfic or non-fanfic, movie, non-movie, game, non-game. You got to use everything you can, and you can't be afraid to try.
And as a voice actor, you're subconsciously drawing influence and inspiration from everywhere without even knowing it. So I'm sure, like, the way I approach the script is because I saw someone else do it like that at some point in my life. So I'm also guilty of that.
Let's see. Moving on to another quick question. What would you say the greatest thing you've learned from BOJ in general? Definitely willing to take risks. Like, that's the ability just to R&D and try something different. Like, as I say, the visual novels, the moving backgrounds, light switching, memory moment stills, all of that is, stuff that I'm so grateful that I said sure. And Jarvy earlier this week actually said it to me, but he said, like, he's feel grateful in some ways that he's able to explore stuff, and that's something I'm wanting to give as many people in the PR team, but in the writers in general. Is I like having this idea of that, okay, I know what I want and I want you to deliver it for me. I'm happy to give that hands-off control where necessary, to give it to someone who's got inspiration and the ability, because I'm not a writer. Like, Jarvy knows this. My prose and my ability to write stuff is not fantastic, but whilst I may have the idea, I trust in his capabilities, and I trust in a lot of people's capabilities. So for me as a director, taking a risk not only to try new ideas, but also to let people go with your ideas is something key that I think a lot of people can learn. You are a director, yes, but that just means you lead and you help give direction. That doesn't necessarily mean you tell everyone which path to go. We go west. Cool. Do we go over the swamp, through the forest? Do we go over the mountain? I'll leave that down to the person making that decision, because it's important that you take those people's inspiration and ideas into account. And a lot of really good ideas are coming from that mentality personally. Go ahead, Jarvy.
I was just going to say the last thing I want to say regarding that last question about, like, what has been the thing you've learned the most from BOJ. I've learned how to lead. I'm not even gonna lie. I know I'm no longer the TL for PR, and I'm very happy that Trenton has stepped up to take my place, but I learned how to lead a team. And a lot of what I learned with the BOJ and PR team, I'm actually carrying over to musicians and the writers. And I think G can definitely attest to just the structure and the style that I've gone for. I learned because of these guys. I learned exactly how to engage, but also how to interact and get people to talk and get enthusiasm and discuss and revise and collaborate. The PR team probably would never know this, but I didn't really have an idea of how I wanted to conduct things. I was flying by the seat of my pants for the most part, but I learned with every talk session, every discussion, how people felt and how to manage them, but also how to make them feel, inspired and involved and creative and all the things that make it necessary for a team to function. So as much as I'm sure the PR team might say that I helped lead them in the beginning, they helped lead me to where I am now as a team leader.
Oh, you're the best. Right. What's the thing that I've learned from BLJ? I learned how to lead too, even though my leadership of BLJ hasn't exactly taken form yet. Let's see. I learned patience against my will. I've improved my writing skills. I've learned to write better in character, because I have a freaking rambling vocal style and my writing style ain't much better, but learned to be more conservative with what I write, law of conservation and detail of all that. And ever do anything that doesn't mean something. I don't know, it's like a real interesting experience for me. Very first time I've worked on an organized writing project before, and I want that to be the rest of my life. Like, I want to write. I want to, work on a writing team. I want to lead a writing team. I want to get my work out there published in the world, and this is potentially, my first exposure to what will be the rest of my life. So I'm just really grateful for the kind of person that this, whole experience has shaped me into.
Anyone else want to say anything that they've gained from this?
I would just say that, again, because Bonds of Justice is so focused on character moments, I've learned that less is more sometimes with acting, and if you just let your voice respond to the raw emotions, it will do whatever you need it to do. Like, you don't look at the script and go, oh, I have to be sad now, so let me drop my voice in pitch. It's just going to happen like that if you're thinking in your head these characters' thoughts and internalizing the emotions. It'll just come across naturally.
Anyone else?
I've learned that writing scripts is way harder than writing stories, and I've got a newfound respect for scriptwriters, of which I am sometimes.
Good. It's a good skill for writing. Yeah, for writing. It's always nice to pick up new and little skills. Explore all the ways you can write something will help you become a better writer.
I was not a scriptwriter before I joined DOJ, so I completely understand the weirdness of this is a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah, there's new rules.
What? I can't go wild with my many paragraphs of description. I have to actually cut things down. Darn.
Yeah, we know that. We got many a story to tell probably on that one, and future DCs will go into the joys of cutting down on length of things. But a quick thank you to Harry Meaden for £5 donation. Appreciate that we inspire, and we do want to. We keep learning as a team. All new BOJs allow multiple people, and there's not a consistent BOJ team as well, which is another probably awesome thing about this. Is sometimes you heard that there's a lot of different people doing the art. There's a lot of different people doing the editing. That variety gives people within the team an opportunity to just show off something else that they may not be able to again, and it gives us freshness. And we'll always be promoting that. Will always be a central tenet of this is the ability to give people that chance to explore and try out new things. With that being said, I think we need to wrap this up. I know someone wants to get places. I know I need to get places, particularly bed. It's 10:30. So I'm going to wrap up with a bit of a question for the people in the chat. I've got 3 numbers in my head. Okay, and I'm going to ask everyone in the chat who's watching live to choose a number between 1 and 3. Whatever the biggest, whichever group selects them. Sorry, whichever number is the most popular, I will give a piece of interesting news about.
We have a 3. 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. Okay, that's tied.
Okay.
6.
We'll go with 2.
7,
We'll go with 2.
9.
So, number 2. All right. So, number 2's news. I can officially confirm that Elements of Justice will be hosting another panel at the upcoming UK Pony Convention, and that we will be in one of the larger lecture rooms this time, and that there will be several of us. So last time there's only a couple of us that were able to make it, but this time we're bringing quite a significant more. Right now, I can confirm that I am going. I can also confirm that Cadet Redshirt is going, Sonata, obviously, and Applejack's VA. I'm also able to confirm that we will be having James, one of our writers, available, and also that our VA for Turnip Page, Octave Rainfall, is also going to be making it. So if you're looking for a convention to go and find, go to, enjoy, if you've got the ability to come someplace, you want to meet us, that is the place to be. That is the place to be. UK PonyCon, 30th September. There'll be more information coming. It's a, you had a 1 in 3 chance of getting something else, and you should keep an eye on the socials because, I don't know, you may want to also make sure you bring some additional resources is all I'm going to say. There may be maybe something there that you may want to just, be on the lookout for, so to speak. But with that exciting piece of news out of the way, I'm going to be nice and give you one more because there's someone here who's been working on something really hard that I think you all want to hear, and I'll let the man himself say it. So Jarvy, do you want to let people in on a little secret?
Yeah. Thanks, G, for totally telling me that I was going to get roped into your plans. I had a speech ready for sure. I can confirm that the Elements of Justice Case 2 and Bonds of Justice Season 1 OST will be released in a couple of weeks. At least 2. It's all ready. You'll be able to hear the entire OST from beginning of Case 2 onward in a future video.
And even better, we're going to make it a live premiere. So that means when we'll be, when it goes up on the channel, we'll premiere it, and you can listen to the whole thing as it, basically goes live. So you can listen to all the tracks, and then afterwards, obviously, it will stay on as a video. So AOST is ready. So get ready. It's a long one. We've been putting a lot of effort into it. I say we, Jarvy and Neoc, and who else has also been putting quite a lot of a good shift into it, Jarvy?
Gian helped with the graphics.
Gian as well. So a lot of really good work from everybody there. It's really exciting. I haven't seen it yet myself, so I'm looking forward to seeing the final product. But yeah, that's coming. It's all going to be on YouTube. Completely for free. So listen to it, enjoy it. There's a lot of really awesome tracks. And yeah, with those pieces of information out of the way, I think we really do need to wrap this up now. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you for listening to all the things we had to say. You guys always make this experience enjoyable, bearable. There are some really difficult moments. There have been with Operation Revamp. I won't hide that. But knowing that we can produce stuff that we love and to, be able to show everybody the heart and soul and passion that we have for this series, what our inspirations are, it means the world to us, and we're really, really grateful for everyone who contributes, supports us, does whatever they need to. It really, I can't. It's cliche, but it's true. You all mean the world to us, and we wouldn't be here without you. So we should always end with a tradition. We always do. There's never any way you can escape it. So if everybody in the DC would please unmute their microphones, and on the count of 3, we shall engage in the age-old tradition of Elements of Justice.
Does that mean 2?
That means you too, Al. Come on. You can
Okay. You're one of us.
All right. Are you ready, Al?
It might go bad, but okay.
Oh, it's BOJ or J. God 2 is always watching. All right. On the count of 3, a 1, a 2, a 3.
Didn't work.
That was the worst one yet.
Oh my god.
Jesus, guys, come on.
You guys are
Freaking
so-